Chapter 146. Inside the Blood Demon Nest, inside the Thousand Beast Blood Pool. The Thousand Beast Blood Pool, which originally had more than half of it left, was now almost empty. Yiguchen was sitting in the middle with his legs crossed. His aura seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. The Thousand Beast Blood Pool was filled with life essence. After being refined by the heavenly sun Xianming fire, it could be converted into the purest true qi. At a certain moment, Yiguchen suddenly opened his eyes. There was a cold glint in his eyes. Qi refinement 8th revolution, break. Boom. A powerful true qi spread out from Yiguchen's body. At this moment, Yiguchen's cultivation had also risen to the qi refinement 8th revolution with the help of the Thousand Beast Blood Pool's essence blood. But this wasn't enough. Yiguchen's origin ring flashed as he took out a fiery red fruit covered in dragon scale-like patterns. It was the burning dragon fruit he had obtained from the auction in Donglin Prefecture's Cloud Sky City. Without any hesitation, Yiguchen swallowed the burning dragon fruit. A powerful and scorching energy erupted from his body. Together with the scorching power of refinement, it began to refine Yiguchen's organs. With the help of the Thousand Beast Blood Pool and the burning dragon fruit, Yiguchen's cultivation of the marrow-cleansing scripture sped up. With Yiguchen's sharp spiritual sense, he naturally knew that something had happened outside the nest. But he couldn't stop now. Otherwise, all his efforts would be in vain. This time, he had to completely cultivate the marrow-cleansing scripture. Outside the nest, Su Jianchu's mouth was stained with blood. Her body was covered in whip marks. But Ji Hongmei didn't immediately kill her. Instead, she had a perverted expression on her face as she toyed with Su Jianchu like a cat toying with a mouse. Su Jianchu's body was covered in bloody whip marks. It was a shocking sight. Even Mo Lin and Qin Badian, who were watching from the side, felt their hair stand on end. They sighed inwardly. Ji Hongmei truly lived up to her reputation as a demoness. "My good sister, you've angered me. So, I'll make you wish you were dead." Ji Hongmei touched the wound on her face with one hand and smiled like a vicious snake beauty. Her tone was sharp and vicious. The people watching through the heaven-surveying spiritual eyes felt pity for him, but at the same time, they were also puzzled. Su Jianchu knew that it was hard for her to win against the three of them, so why was she still persisting? Could it be that Su Jianchu is guarding the blood demon lair? Some people suddenly guessed. After this reminder, everyone was enlightened. Su Jianchu didn't want to leave because she wanted to guard the cave. Someone should be cultivating in seclusion in the lair. The only person who was close to Su Jianchu was Dugubai. "Tiskese, to have such a beautiful woman, I really envy that Dugubai." Many martial artists sighed. Dugubai could be considered extremely lucky to have such a stunning beauty protect him with her life. At this moment, inside the blood demon lair, Yiguchen's skin was covered in a layer of golden radiance. If one were to look into Yiguchen's body, they would find that his internal organs were like golden crystals. They were transparent and had a jade-like texture. The body metamorphosis scripture cultivated the muscles, bones, and skin, while the marrow-cleansing scripture cultivated the internal organs. Obviously, this was a sign that the marrow-cleansing scripture was about to be completed. Crack! At a certain moment, the sound of porcelain shattering came from Yiguchen's body. Then, Yiguchen's internal organs suddenly emitted a resplendent brilliance. It was as if they weren't organs of flesh and blood, but precious stones and jade. Yiguchen stood up, and a powerful fluctuation swept out in all directions. His body also emitted a resplendent brilliance. The marrow-cleansing scripture had been cultivated to greater success. Within Yiguchen's body, there was a cracking sound that sounded like a dragon twisting. It was the sound of bones that were forged to be as hard as diamonds and gems. At the same time, Yiguchen raised his hand and clenched his fist slightly. A terrifying force spread through the flesh and blood of his arm. He suddenly punched out and bombarded the hard rock wall beside him. Boom! It was as if he had punched into tofu. Yiguchen's entire arm sank into the rock wall. Yiguchen didn't feel anything at all. Is this the marrow-cleansing scripture after reaching greater success? Yiguchen felt that his blood and qi were like dragons in his body. His blood and chi had never been so vigorous. With a perfect body, the body metamorphosis scripture, and the marrow cleansing scripture, Yiguchen's current body was terrifyingly strong. Unfortunately, although the marrow cleansing scripture has been cultivated to greater success, it will still take some time to merge it with the body metamorphosis scripture and cultivate the legendary indestructible Vajra body. Yiguchen sighed softly. The two body refinement techniques had been cultivated to greater success. Next, he just needed to merge them and some opportunities to cultivate the legendary indestructible Vajra body that only first ancestor Bodhidharma had achieved. Although I haven't cultivated the indestructible Vajra body yet, the marrow cleansing scripture has been cultivated to greater success. It will only take some time and opportunities to reach that step. Moreover, my cultivation realm has increased by a small level. Yiguchen muttered to himself. He was already very satisfied with this cultivation. As for the indestructible Vajra body, Yiguchen had a feeling that he wouldn't need too long to reach that realm. Now let's go out. Yiguchen looked at the cave entrance in the distance and frowned. A faint sense of unease rose in his heart. His figure flickered as he dashed out. At this moment, outside the bloody cave, Su Jianshi was in an extremely sorry state. Her body was covered in blood and whip marks. Her aura was extremely weak. Even though she was a proud daughter of the heavens, she couldn't withstand the continuous attacks of the three great prodigies. Ji Hongmei, don't delay any longer. Finish her off. Mo Lin frowned. He was also a little disgusted by Ji Hongmei's bad taste. On the other side, Qin Bat Ian looked regretfully at Su Jianshi, who was covered in blood. Such a beautiful girl had been tortured to such a state by Ji Hongmei. He had no interest in coveting her. My good sister, you can die now. Ji Hongmei seemed to have gotten tired of playing. She sneered and swung a whip with powerful true qi at Su Jianshi's head. Su Jianshi gathered the last of her true qi and blocked with her sword. Bang! Su Jianshi spat out a mouthful of blood. Her jade-like arms felt like they were about to break. The green cicada sword was sent flying. Her delicate body flew backward. Just as she was about to hit a rock, she was suddenly caught by a figure and knocked into his embrace. Su Jianshi looked up with difficulty and saw that familiar and ordinary face. Silly boy, you're finally out, Su Jianshi said weakly. When Yiguchen came out of the cave, he saw the bloodied Su Jianshi flying out. When he saw the shocking whip marks all over Su Jianshi's body, even the usually calm Yiguchen was shaken. His hands trembled. He was the soul of the sword demon. It was rare for his emotions to fluctuate. However, when he saw Su Jianshi covered in blood, Yiguchen couldn't calm down. Why didn't you leave? Yiguchen asked with difficulty. Silly boy, I'm the leader of the Righteous Alliance, heroine Su Jianshi. Of course, I have to protect you. Su Jianshi smiled. Her blood-stained smile was so dazzling in Yiguchen's eyes. It was all to protect him. Yiguchen felt the flames of Azura burning in his heart. Yiguchen took a deep breath and said indifferently, then leave the rest to me. However, the calmer he was, the more it represented Yiguchen's killing intent. It was like a surging undercurrent. Okay. Su Jianshi responded weakly. She couldn't hold on any longer and fainted. Yiguchen gently placed Su Jianshi on the ground. Then he looked at Ji Hongmei and the other two. When he saw the bloodied whip in Ji Hongmei's hand, Yiguchen could no longer suppress his anger. Clang! The meteorite sword was unsheathed. Sword energy filled the sky. Yiguchen's murderous aura exploded and surged into the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. If the three of you can leave this place alive, I, Dugubai, will kill myself. With that, the weather changed and heaven and earth trembled. Chapter 147. Yiguchen's black hair fluttered in the wind as a layer of blood-red light seemed to emanate from his eyes. The terrifying aura of an 8th-rank Qi refinement cultivator was released. His body rumbled as if an angry dragon had awakened. His cold words were like the judgment of an Azura descending from hell. This, feeling Dugubai's powerful aura, Ji Hongmei and the other two's expressions changed, especially Mo Lin and Qin Batian. Clearly, in their eyes, Yiguchen's cultivation was much stronger than before. This kid must have refined the myriad beast blood pool's fortuitous encounter. Mo Lin's expression was unsightly. You want to keep all three of us alive? Don't talk big. Qin Baishan's expression was also unsightly, but he still said firmly. In his opinion, even if Yi Guchen's strength had increased, it would be difficult for him to fight all three of them at once. Yi Guchen did not say anything. His gaze first locked onto Ji Hongmei. Looking at the blood-stained whip, it was clear that most of the whip wounds on Su Jianshir's body were caused by this seductive woman. I was wondering who it was. So it's Dugu Ubai. Su Jianshir injured my face, so what's wrong with giving her some punishment? Ji Hongmei touched her face with heartache as she looked at Yi Guchen. A red glow flickered in her enchanting eyes. Clearly, Ji Hongmei was using an illusion. Yi Guchen's body shook slightly. Just as Ji Hongmei revealed a smug expression, her eyes went blank. Because Yi Guchen's pair of ink-black eyes had been swallowed by the extremely dense blood-red color in an instant. Eye of Azura, activate. Terrifying illusions appeared one after another in Ji Hongmei's mind. All sorts of cruel scenes appeared in Ji Hongmei's mind. Ji Hongmei suddenly covered her head with her hands and shrieked. Punishment, is it? I'll let you have a taste of punishment too. Yi Guchen's lips curled into a cold smile. His footsteps flashed, and he appeared in front of Ji Hongmei almost instantly. A wisp of blood-red sword light shot out. It was like an Azura had unsheathed his sword and intended to slash the heavens. Ji Hongmei bit the tip of her tongue. The sharp pain woke her up, and she saw the sword light approaching her. As soon as she raised her whip, a blood-red sword light flashed. In my hand. Ji Hongmei's face paled as she screamed. Her hand that was holding the whip had been cut off at the wrist by Yi Guchen's sword. Blood splattered, and the severed hand was sent flying. Yi Guchen's eyes were cold and sharp. He was like the Azura Grim Reaper, seeking vengeance with the methods of hell. Sword light swirled around his hand as he performed the golden snake sword art. Streaks of sword light streaked across Ji Hongmei's face. In just a single breath, Yi Guchen had slashed out more than 40 times. My face. My face. Ji Hongmei retreated quickly, but she felt a lot of liquid flowing down her face. It was fresh blood. She used her remaining hand to touch her cheek, only to feel the crisscrossing scars. Ji Hongmei's charming face was covered in sword scars. Her entire face had been destroyed by Yi Guchen. No, this servant's face, this servant's beauty. Ji Hongmei's face was distorted. Together with her disfigured face, she looked as terrifying as a ghost from hell. Yi Guchen held the falling star flexible sword in his hand. Drops of blood gathered on the blade and dripped down along the blade. Qin Batian and Mo Lin felt a chill in their hearts when they saw Ji Hongmei's face covered in blood. Yi Guchen's black robe was stained with blood. His face was expressionless, and his blood-red eyes were like an Azura from hell as he stared at the three of them. Perhaps he wasn't bragging? Qin Batian suddenly thought. Qin Batian, hurry up and attack with all your might. Otherwise, we won't be able to escape today. Mo Lin suddenly shouted from the other side. After witnessing Yi Guchen's terrifying means, Mo Lin also felt a chill in his heart. He knew that if it wasn't Yi Guchen who would die today, it would be them. Qin Batian and Mo Lin no longer dared to hold back. They could vaguely sense that Yi Guchen was truly enraged at this moment. The three of them had crossed Yi Guchen's bottom line. Scorching Sun Saber Art, Blazing Dragon Strike. Qin Baishan's flaming true energy gushed out and spread towards the blazing battle saber. Blazing flames soared into the sky, as if a fire dragon was roaring in the sky. It was obvious that Qin Baishan's true strength was extraordinary, and he wasn't much weaker than those top geniuses. Boom! He slashed his saber at Yi Guchen, and a fire dragon swept across. Yi Guchen's blood-red eyes were indifferent. He didn't even dodge, as if he didn't see it. Qin Batian was delighted. Before his smile could fully spread, it completely froze. Yi Guchen slowly stretched out his hand, and the heavenly sun Xianming fire gushed out and wrapped around his palm. Like the hand of a fire god, he directly caught the incoming blazing battle saber. Bang! The blazing battle saber's ferocious attack came to an abrupt halt in Yi Guchen's hand. This, Qin Batian and Mo Lin were stunned. Even Ji Hongmei, who was in a frenzy, was slightly stunned. What did they just see? Catching a spiritual weapon with his bare hands? Although Qin Baishan's blazing battle saber was only a low-grade spiritual weapon, it wasn't something that could be stopped with one hand. How is this possible? How can your physical body be more terrifying than a demonic beast's? Qin Batian was really stunned, and he couldn't react in time. Yi Guchen's lips curled into a cold smile. He had a perfect physical body, and with the greater success of the tendon-changing scripture and marrow-cleansing scripture, he could still catch a low-grade spiritual weapon with his bare hands. Yi Guchen suddenly clenched his fist. Crack! A terrifying dragon-elephant force exploded, and cracks started to appear on the blazing battle saber. Impossible! Qin Batian roared. Nothing is impossible. Yi Guchen's eyes were cold, and he directly kicked Qin Baishan's chest. Bang! Qin Batian spat out a mouthful of blood. Even with the protection of the obsidian battle armor, he felt as if he was being crushed by an ancient elephant, and several of his ribs were broken. Yi Guchen threw the blazing battle saber at Qin Batian, and with a sharp whistle, the saber slammed into Qin Baishan's chest. Boom! Qin Baishan's body shook again, and even cracks started to appear on his obsidian battle armor. The blazing battle saber directly slammed Qin Baishan's body into the ground, causing cracks to appear on the ground. Dead silence. Ji Hongmei and Mo Lin looked at Yi Guchen in shock, as if they were looking at a monster. Although Qin Batian was still a distance away from Qin Aoshi, Shen Miao, and the rest, he was still a true genius. However, in the hands of Yi Guchen, he was in such a sorry state, lying in the pit like a dead dog. We must kill him. If he continues to hide, we will all die today. Mo Lin was truly frightened. He had always been conceited, and thought that he was comparable to the #1 genius. However, after seeing the Azura like Yi Guchen, he finally understood how laughable he was. There was also Ji Hongmei. Although she had sunk into madness after her face was destroyed, after seeing the Azura like Yi Guchen, her heart felt as if it had fallen into an ice cave, and she felt a bone-chilling chill. Chapter 148. At this moment, there was a suffocating silence in the periphery of the mountain range. Yi Guchen's powerful attack, destroying Ji Hongmei's face, and severely injuring Qin Batian were all projected to the periphery through the sky surveying spiritual eyes. Shock, astonishment, disbelief. All kinds of emotions appeared on the faces of the warriors from the 7 major forces. Is this really the Duguwubai from the first stage? Some of the spectators were dumbfounded and could not believe it. Qin family's little overlord, Qin Batian, was severely injured in just a few moves. Yi Guchen even caught the spiritual inscription weapon with his bare hands. All of this made the warriors extremely shocked. Not only is this kid's swordsmanship extraordinary, but his physical body is also incomparably strong. If not for the fact that he doesn't have the aura of a demonic beast, I would really suspect that he is a demonic beast in human form. Elder Qing He of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest was also shocked. Yi Guchen's swordsmanship had already exceeded his expectations, but he did not expect his physical body to be so abnormal as well. If we can recruit this kid, it doesn't matter even if Sword Sect's Yi Guchen doesn't come. This kid's talent and cultivation are definitely not inferior to Yi Guchen's. Elder Qing He sighed. At the same time, he was slightly dissatisfied with Yi Guchen who did not come. Compared to Yi Guchen who did not even come, Elder Qing He was obviously more inclined to recruit this youth called Dugubai. Hearing this, Chu Qingqi could only smile bitterly. He believed that if Yi Guchen really came, he would definitely be as stunning as Dugubai. On the other side, Lu Tianying of the Limitless Sword Sect had an extremely ugly expression. He was about to cry for his parents. "You bastard, you almost missed out on such a good talent. No matter the price, we must recruit this person into our Limitless Sword Sect." Zhao Jingting's tone was extremely determined. Previously, he only intended to recruit Yi Guchen. After seeing the scene just now, Zhao Jingting made up his mind to recruit Yi Guchen. If I can really rope this kid in, I'm afraid he'll be another monstrous sword genius that won't be inferior to Xianhao in the future, Zhao Jingting thought to himself. Hee, it's a pity that this Dugubai is a man. Otherwise, my consonance palace would want him to join as well. Fusatsu. Sister, we can make an exception. Although this Dugubai looks a little ordinary, his talent is truly extraordinary. Over in the direction of the consonant's divine palace, a charming young girl laughed, her eyes shining with a brilliant light. At this moment, because of a single Yiguchen, the undercurrents of the 7 great powers were surging, and their minds were racing. Could it be that this Dugubai wants to? However, after seeing Yiguchen's performance, the life and death chamber elder in charge of monitoring faintly furrowed his brows even though he was stunned. After which, he said, "Quick, send someone over. I'm afraid that Dugubai wants to kill these 3. What? As soon as these words came out, it caused another uproar. Among these 3 people, Mo Lin was from the Mo family in the Yuanyang prefecture, Qin Batian was from the Qin family in the Donglin prefecture, and Ji Hongmei was from the Spring Cloud Pavilion in the state capital of Qin. Although they couldn't be compared to the 7 great powers, they were still at the level of superfamilies. This Dugubai actually dared to kill these 3 people in front of everyone? Many people were shocked and couldn't believe it. If Yiguchen really did so, his name would definitely spread throughout the Saint Origin dynasty. Of course, it would also provoke the terrifying revenge of the 3 great powers. But would Yiguchen be afraid? In the mountain range, Yiguchen's face was indifferent, like a killing god that disregarded all living beings. He glanced at the sky surveying spiritual eye in midair and knew in his heart. If he continued to delay and waited for reinforcements, it would be impossible for him to kill these 3 people. As for the consequences of killing these 3 people, Yiguchen didn't care. The sword demon had never been afraid of anything in his life. If he had to kill, he would kill. With a sword in his hand, he didn't ask the heavens and earth, but only his own heart. God-slaying sword art, blood slaughter. Yiguchen's golden true energy gushed out. The vigorous aura made Yiguchen look like a golden god of war. The sword in his hand was like an azura. The color of blood condensed, and a boundless sword energy fluctuation spread out. With a slash of the sword, blood slaughter. Bang! Mo Lin and Ji Hongmei attacked at the same time, using their ultimate moves. Heavenly cold mysterious energy. Demon Buster Whip. 2 equally powerful waves spread out, and the strong moves collided with Yiguchen's sword move, causing an earth-shattering roar. However, the result of this attack was Mo Lin and Ji Hongmei retreated at the same time, spitting out blood. On the other hand, Yiguchen also retreated more than 10 steps. His arms were trembling, and his blood was churning. However, he didn't suffer any serious injuries. Is this Dugubai really a demonic beast? Mo Lin's hands trembled violently as a powerful rebounding force caused his arms to emit the sound of bones cracking. On the other side, Ji Hongmei wasn't in a good state either. Not only was she mentally unstable, but she was also injured. The 3 of them had already been injured by Su Jianshir's Spirit Sword Art's ultimate move. Now that they were facing Yiguchen, who was in his peak condition, they paled in comparison. After all, Yiguchen had just broken through to the 8th refinement realm. Together with the body metamorphose scripture and marrow cleansing scripture, his body was at its peak, and his blood was like a dragon. Mo Lin, Ji Hongmei, we just need to stall for time. There are sky-patrolling spiritual eyes here. When the time comes, someone will come to save us. Qin Batian stood up with difficulty and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He stared at Yiguchen and said, Dugubai, you can't kill me today. In the future, I will work with my elder brother to kill you and Su Jianshir. Even if we can't kill you, we will mobilize our Qin clan's experts to kill you. Qin Baishan's voice was as cold as ice. At the same time, he secretly crushed a jade strip behind his back. Hearing Qin Baishan's words, Mo Lin and Ji Hongmei were overjoyed. It was as if they had grasped onto a life-saving straw. However, Yiguchen laughed. It was a casual laugh, as if he had heard a funny joke. His blood-red eyes swept across the 3 as he said, I said that if the 3 of you can walk out of here alive, I, Dugubai, will kill myself on the spot. Clang. The sound of metal being buckled rang out. The power of ice and fire surged on Yiguchen's body as a brilliant dragon armor of ice and fire appeared on his body. Yiguchen held the meteor-soft sword in his left hand. The blade was as cold as blood. He slowly raised his right hand, and along the tendons in his arm, waves of true qi gushed out from his fingertips. Yiguchen hadn't used the martial arts of his previous life in a long time. This was because he had a few spirit-level sword arts to cultivate. Moreover, some martial arts of the Jianghu had certain requirements. But now, after breaking through the 8th cycle of qi refining, Yiguchen could finally use this powerful martial art that was famous in Jianghu in his previous life. 6 Pulse Divine Sword. Chapter 149. Following Yiguchen's roar, powerful true energy gushed out from Yiguchen's right hand. Shaoshang Sword, Shangyang Sword, Middle Charge Sword, Guanchong Sword, Young Charge Sword. True energy gushed out from his meridians, forming into a sword aura. The sharp sword aura seemed to be able to tear apart the heavens and earth. The powerful sword aura pierced through the air and shot towards Qin Badian and the rest. What kind of martial art is this? Qin Badian and the other two trembled. They had never heard of such a martial art before. The 3 of them were forced back by the 6 Pulse Divine Sword aura, vomiting blood. The 6 Pulse Divine Sword was shockingly powerful. In the next moment, Yiguchen's lips curled into a cold smile. His feet moved again, stepping on the 64 hexagrams of the Book of Changes. His entire body turned into a series of afterimages, like ripples on water. The top movement technique of the pugilistic world, wave-like minute steps. Because he could not reveal his identity as a swordmaster, Yiguchen directly displayed the 2 top movement techniques of the pugilistic world. Regardless of whether it was the 6 Pulse Divine Sword or wave-like minute steps, they both required powerful internal energy. In this world, they required true energy. Thus, Yiguchen took them out now. His cultivation had already reached the 8th cycle of qi refinement, allowing him to display these top-level martial arts. Damn it, this brat's martial arts are a little strange. Qin Badian roared, his flaming saber slashing through the air. Wild waves crushing dragon slash. Qin Badian seemed to have released all the true qi in his qi si, pouring it into the saber. The entire flaming saber seemed to be unable to withstand this amount of true energy. The already cracked saber let out cracking sounds. Boom. Qin Baishan's saber slashed down. Like a wave of fire, the saber aura destroyed everything in its path. Yiguchen held the meteor-soft sword in his left hand, a thick blood aura gathered on the blade. The Azura power in his body was also pushed to the limit. God-slaying sword technique, devil only. The sword slashed out, like a blood aura splashing across the sky. Bang! Qin Badian once again vomited blood as he was sent flying. His body shuddered violently as cracks appeared on his obsidian battle armor. It was as if half of it had been destroyed. Yiguchen was also knocked back, and a sweet taste rose in his throat. After all, it was Qin Baishan's trump card, and Yiguchen had suffered some injuries. Just half a breath after Yiguchen and Qin Badian exchanged blows, a sinister and vigorous palm qi directly sneaked towards Yiguchen's back. Yiguchen turned around in an instant. Mo Lin had used all his strength to strike Yiguchen's chest. However, Yiguchen was only slightly injured due to the defense of the ice and fire dragon crystal armor. Why didn't you dodge? Mo Lin suddenly thought to himself. Then, with a trace of shock on his face, he suddenly retreated. Bush. Yiguchen's right fingertip released 3 beams of qi from the 6 Meridian's divine sword, piercing towards Mo Lin. Mo Lin tried his best to dodge 2 of them, but the 3rd beam pierced through his forearm, causing blood to spurt out. Mo Lin howled miserably as his face turned pale. A strange whip tore through the air, emitting a stifling screech. Dugubai, you've ruined my appearance. That Ji Hongmei was like a ferocious ghost from hell. She held the whip with her remaining hand and only wanted to kill Yiguchen at this moment. Yiguchen's gaze turned even colder when he saw Ji Hongmei's attack. Although he wanted to kill Qin Badian and Mo Lin, it wasn't enough to truly incite his anger. However, this demoness was using her blood-stained whip to torture Su Jianshi. The blood on the whip came from Su Jianshi. It seems like I haven't taught you enough of a lesson. Yi Guqin's gaze was as cold as the god of death. At this moment, it was as if he had truly turned into a sword demon. The god-slaying sword technique was executed once again. The intense sword radiance was like blood as it completely cut Ji Hongmei's whip apart. Then, he raised the tip of his sword and used a mysterious sword technique to draw an outline along Ji Hongmei's cheek. You have to pay the price for torturing Su Jianshi. Yi Guqin's tone was as cold as ice as his sword vibrated. Rip. The sound of paper tearing could be heard. Ah! What followed was Ji Hongmei's inhuman shriek. A blood-soaked face flew out. Specks of blood splattered everywhere, leaving behind spots of vermilion. Ji Hongmei covered her bloodied face with both hands as she howled like a malicious spirit. In the next moment, Yi Guqin used wave-like subtle steps as his figure flashed. With a slash of his sword, a bloody light appeared on Ji Hongmei's neck. A head that was badly mutilated was sent flying, and blood spurted out from the neck cavity, splashing into the sky. The #1 prodigy of the state capital of Qing, the demoness Ji Hongmei, died on the spot. Dead silence, a suffocating silence. No matter if it was inside or outside the mountain range, it was completely silent. This was the first time the #1 prodigy of the 10 prefectures elite gathering had died. Monster, you're a monster, not a human. Mo Lin saw Ji Hongmei's miserable state and felt a chill run down his spine. He had thought that Yi Guqin was someone who would endure even if he was bullied. But now he knew. If Yi Guqin was not angry, he would be. If he was angry, he would be a Jura. There was only one thought left in Molin's mind. He had to run as far away as possible from this monster called Invincible Dugu. Yi Guqin's meteor soft sword was dripping with blood. He used wave-like subtle steps and slashed out again. Do you think you can escape? Powerful golden true qi surged out. This time, Yi Guqin even used a trace of a Jura sword intent. Even though it was only a trace, its power was still terrifying. A bloody storm surged out. God-slaying sword art, demon only. A wisp of blood-red light reflected the sky. After adding a trace of the Shura sword intent to it, the might of this sword strike was earth-shattering. Puchi. The bloody sword light that seemed capable of destroying everything directly pierced through Mo Lin's chest. Because of the terrifying destructive power of the god-slaying sword art, Mo Lin's entire chest exploded. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere as his internal organs exploded. Plop. Mo Lin's corpse fell to the ground. The #1 prodigy of the Yuanyang prefecture had died. Following the tragic deaths of Ji Hongmei and Mo Lin, Qin Batian was completely dumbfounded. He looked at Yi Guqin with a gaze that was filled with emotions. Fear. This Qin Batian, who had always been lawless and overbearing, was completely terrified of Yi Guqin. You better not kill me, otherwise. Qin Batian's body was trembling and his voice was trembling. It was as if the person before him wasn't Yi Guqin, but an Azura from hell. Don't you think it's stupid to say such words now? When the three of you were trying to kill Su Jianshi, did you think that you would have such an experience? Yi Guqin's tone was ice-cold. He slowly brushed the meteorite soft sword with one hand and flung away the blood on it. No, don't. Qin Batian squeezed out almost all the true qi in his qi as he turned around and dashed out. A bloody light reflected in Yi Guqin's eyes. The meteorite's soft sword in his hand slashed through the air. With another slash, the sword light swept across the sky. However, at this moment, a cold and arrogant roar sounded from afar. If you dare to attack, Qin Aoshi will pull out your tendons and flay your bones. However, Qin Aoshi was like a bolt of lightning as he charged towards them. Big brother. Qin Batian's face revealed the joy of escaping death. He had secretly crushed the jade strip to send a message to Qin Aoshi to come over. Now, his savior had finally arrived. However, he saw Qin Aoshi's incomparably shocked and furious expression. Why is Big Brother showing such an expression? Qin Batian was puzzled. Then, he slightly lowered his head and saw the tip of a blood-red sword piercing through his obsidian battle armor and through his heart. Qin Badian turned his head with difficulty and saw Yiguchen's blood-red eyes. "The regret." Feeling the life force in his body rapidly draining away, Qin Badian spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were filled with endless regret. If he could do it all over again, he would never have provoked Yiguchen. Plop, Qin Baishan's body fell to the ground. "Dubai, I will kill you today." Qin Aoshi roared. His eyes were blood-red and ferocious. He was like a thunder god from hell. Endless lightning true chi erupted from his body and swept through the surrounding forest. Chapter 150. How could Qin Aoshi not be enraged when he saw Qin Badian die in front of him? He did not care about what Qin Badian had done. He only knew that this ordinary-looking young man with bloodshot eyes had killed his younger brother. Die! Qin Aoshi donned the Thunder God's battle armor and lightning surrounded his body. His aura was like a long spear. Murderous intent gathered in his eyes. He clasped his hands together and curled his fingers. Then he slowly pulled open a dazzling lightning bolt. Amidst the divine lightning, a silver spear materialized. It was the Thunder Spear, an upper-grade spiritual weapon. Qin Aoshi donned the Thunder God's battle armor and held the Thunder Spear in his hand. Dazzling lightning bolts surrounded his body like dragons. His aura was so strong that it was terrifying. "Today, I can only use your life to let Batian die in peace." Qin Aoshi's voice was cold. His facial features were deep, and he was like the thunder god from hell. "Who can take my life?" Yiguchen's face was cold. He was like an Azura from the sword. Although he had killed Qin Badian and the other two, his aura was still strong. Although he had suffered some injuries, it was not a big problem in front of the powerful recovery of his perfect physical body. "Kill!" Qin Aoshi did not say anything. His thunder spear pierced through the air. The tip of the spear was filled with lightning bolts. Yiguchen's meteorite soft sword also pierced through the air. The tip of the sword and the tip of the spear collided, resulting in a violent explosion. Bang! Both of them retreated. Yiguchen glanced at Qin Aoshi and was slightly shocked. Qin Aoshi was indeed different from Ji Hongmei and Mo Lin. Although they were both titled as the #1 Sky Prides, Qin Aoshi was obviously stronger than them. Moreover, Yiguchen could faintly feel that there was an even more terrifying and violent power hidden in Qin Aoshi's body. Although it had not been revealed yet, the faint pressure was like a dark cloud pressing down on him. Thunderous 9 transformations, violent thunder collapse. Qin Aoshi's true chi surged out of his body. When the true chi exploded, there was actually a faint sound of thunder and lightning sparks. It was extremely domineering. Heterogeneous Shinchi? Yiguchen raised his eyebrows and drew out his soft meteorite sword. God-slaying sword technique, massacre. A blood-colored sword beam collided with the tip of Qin Aoshi's spear, once again shooting out a circle of ripples in the void. The sword beam and the lightning beam intertwined endlessly. Boom, boom, boom. The two figures crisscrossed like dragons in the clouds and tigers in the wind. Yiguchen's entire body was surging with golden zhenqi. The long sword in his hand was covered with a bloody light, making him look like a golden Azura war god. On the other hand, Qin Aoshi's thunder true chi burst forth. The thunder spear swept across the void, and the thunder radiance rumbled. It was as if an enraged thunder god had descended to the world and was about to send down a heavenly tribulation. The surrounding forests were all destroyed, and the earth was torn apart. The shockwaves from the battle were so strong that it was terrifying, as if a giant beast was destroying the surrounding mountains. Two figures rushed over from the distant horizon. They were both experts in the divine soul realm. They had originally planned to come to the rescue, but when they saw the 3 miserable corpses, they knew that they were too late. Yiguchen killing people was not against the rules, so they did not attack Yiguchen. However, at this moment, even the 2 Divine Soul stage experts were stunned when they saw the world-shocking battle between Qin Aoshi and Yiguchen, who had arrived in rage. Was this really a battle between warriors in the Qi refining realm? The two experts in the divine soul realm looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Boom. Once again, Yiguchen and Chin Aoshi attacked with all their might. Yiguchen raised his right hand, and an extremely powerful Zhen-Qi gushed out along his meridians. It transformed into a sword beam that pierced towards Chin Aoshi. Chin Aoshi's gaze was as cold as ice. He actually allowed the six-pulse godly sword Qi to hit his thunder god battlesuit. He, on the other hand, aimed his spear at Yiguchen. Lightning kill 9 transformations, sharp thunder blast. The power of lightning gathered at the tip of the lightning spear, forming a sharp cone that shot towards Yiguchen. Bang, bang, bang. An earth-shattering explosion shook the sky. Chin Aoshi was pushed back more than 10 feet by the six-pulse godly sword Qi. Even with the protection of the thunder god battlesuit, his blood surged, and a sweet taste rose in his throat. Yiguchen was the same. Chin Aoshi's spear hit the ice fire dragon crystal armor. Although Yiguchen immediately activated the strengthening spirit rune, he was still hit by a huge force, and his body was pushed back. However, after a distance of more than 10 feet, the two of them looked at each other. One was a pair of eyes that were as cold and emotionless as an Azura. The other was a pair of eyes that were filled with lightning and anger. Bang! The two of them stomped on the ground again, and the ground cracked. Yiguchen's body seemed to have turned into a bloody shadow, and Chin Aoshi turned into a lightning bolt, and they collided rapidly. Boom! It was as if two angry dragons had collided, and a powerful shockwave swept out in all directions. Whether it was Yiguchen or Chin Aoshi, both of them gave up on defense, and only used their armors to protect themselves. They attacked with all their strength, and it was as if they were exchanging blows. Duubai, after you pierced Beishin's chest with your sword, you were destined to die under my spear. Chin Aoshi's spear shot towards Yiguchen. Why don't you ask what Chin Bat-Ian did? Only he is allowed to kill, and others are not allowed to kill him? Yiguchen's eyes were as cold as the abyss, and the bloody sword light tore through the air, and shot towards Chin Aoshi. Yes, that's right. It's because his brother is me, Spear King Chin Aoshi. Chin Aoshi's eyes were filled with killing intent, and his tone was cold and arrogant. He gathered the lightning true energy in his body, and once again shot out his spear, filling the sky with spear shadows. Cloudy sky spear art. Yiguchen activated the Eye of Azura, and at the same time, he poured the power of Azura into the meteor soft sword. Blood-red energy spread across the sword, and an incomparably terrifying bloody aura burst out. God-slaying sword technique, demon only. Clang. The two collided, and true energy violently surged in all directions. It was as if two huge stars had collided, and then exploded. Yiguchen and Chin Aoshi could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood, and both of them retreated at the same time. At this moment, the surrounding ground was in a mess. The earth was cracked, and tens of thousands of pitch-black cracks appeared, and the mountains had collapsed. Not to mention the two Divine Soul Realm experts who were watching the battle from afar, even the spectators who were watching through the sky surveying spiritual eyes were stunned. The originally dense crowd was dead silent, and their eyes were fixed on the scene of Yiguchen and Chin Aoshi's battle. They did not expect that a battle between two Qi refining realm cultivators could be so fierce. Heaven's Pride. The true number one Heaven's Pride. Chin Aoshi's strength was well known, but what no one expected was that the ordinary young man named Duguubai could actually fight with Chin Aoshi without being at a disadvantage. Although they were both number one Heaven's Pride, Chin Aoshi was not someone Ji Hongmei or Mo Lin could compare to. If this Duguubai can safely survive this storm, he will definitely be a shining star in the future. Sword Sect Pagoda Forest's Elder Chin he sighed. Of course, not everyone was looking forward to Yiguchen's performance. For example, those from the Qin family, Mo family, and Spring Cloud Pavilion had extremely ugly expressions on their faces. Quickly report to the Patriarch, Mo Lin is dead. Big Brother Badian is dead. Big Brother Aoshi must kill that Duguubai. Send a message to the Pavilion Master. Senior Sister Ji Hongmei is also dead, and the person who killed her is Duguubai. The people from the three forces were in an uproar. Obviously, this was going to be a big storm. After all, these three forces all had profound entrances of life and death, and even spiritual bridge of heaven and earth experts. They definitely could not watch their own heaven's pride die without doing anything. For Yiguchen, this was a life-threatening storm. Chapter 151. Within the mountain range, the battle had reached its climax. Yiguchen and Qin Aoshi both unleashed their powerful battle prowess. Especially Yiguchen. Although he couldn't use many of his techniques, he could still contend against Qin Aoshi with his god-slaying sword technique, six-pulse divine sword, and wave-like subtle steps. Boom! After another collision, the two of them were pushed back again. Qin Aoshi raised his eyebrows slightly. He was also shocked by Yiguchen's physical body and strength. On the other hand, Yiguchen also had a trace of seriousness towards Qin Aoshi, who had yet to reveal his trump card. At this moment, the two of them had blood on the corners of their mouths and were injured in many places. Because they didn't have any defense, other than the armor protecting their bodies, they were basically exchanging injuries for injuries, fighting with their lives on the line. Even Yiguchen's ice and fire dragon crystal armor had many cracks on it. However, with the self-healing spiritual runes, it could slowly heal. Just when the two of them were about to attack again, another figure appeared in the distance. After all, the commotion caused by Yiguchen and Qin Aoshi was a little too big. The impact of such an intense battle was even greater than the battle between Yiguchen and Qin Badian and the rest. In the distance, a man with a long sword wrapped in bandages appeared. It was Morong Ditian. In another place, a muscular man with a terrifying saber on his shoulder appeared. It was the blade maniac, Shintu Miao. However, there was another aura that made Yiguchen frown faintly. A beautiful woman in blue clothes appeared. She was as brilliant as ice and snow. Her ice-blue eyes were filled with surprise as she looked at Yiguchen and Qin Aoshi. It was Xia Yubing. The arrival of Xia Yubing, Murong Ditian, Shintu Miao and the rest made the atmosphere become strange. Even Qin Aoshi was frowning. Seeing Yiguchen wiping away the blood on the corner of his mouth, all the geniuses, including Xia Yubing, were shocked as they looked at Yiguchen. When they saw the corpses of Qin Batian, Mo Lin, and Ji Hongmei, even the usually indifferent Xia Yubing's icy blue eyes revealed astonishment. Qing State Prefecture's Ji Hongmei, Yuanyang Prefecture's Mo Lin and Little Tyrant Qin Batian are all dead? Murong Ditian was also slightly stunned. Even with his strength, it would not be easy for him to kill the three of them. However, none of these geniuses were fools. When they saw Qin Aoshi glaring at Yiguchen with hatred, they all knew what was going on. However, it was also because of this that Xia Yubing and the others were endlessly shocked. Could it be that these three were all killed by Duguubai? Shintu Miao was a little stunned. Judging from Qin Aoshi's attitude, I'm afraid this is the case. Xia Yubing suppressed the shock in her heart and looked at Yiguchen with an incomparably serious gaze. In her heart, Yiguchen, who she originally viewed as a great enemy, did not come. But now, a dark horse that she had no choice but to pay attention to had appeared. Xia Yubing was very ambitious and had long since decided to shine in the 10 prefectures' elite gathering. Therefore, Xia Yubing instinctively raised her vigilance towards the youth called Dugubai. Seeing that Xia Yubing did not seem to have seen through his identity, Yiguchen's heart slightly relaxed. After all, he already had a mortal enemy, Qin Aoshi. If his identity was exposed, Xia Yubing, Murong Ditian and Qin Aoshi would definitely take action. No matter how powerful Yiguchen was, it was impossible for him to fight against the three of them at the same time. The three of them were not on the same level as Qin Batian and the other two. What's wrong, Qin Aoshi? Have you still decided to take action? Yiguchen indifferently said. Are you afraid? Qin Aoshi tightly grasped his lightning spear as the killing intent in his eyes did not decrease. It's not that I'm afraid. It's just that if both of us are injured, it would benefit others. Yiguchen smiled. There was not the slightest trace of fear in his blood moon-like eyes. If Qin Aoshi was determined to fight to the death, he would definitely accompany him. Qin Aoshi's face was as cold as the eternal ice abyss. He glanced at Xia Yubing and the rest with a trace of hesitation in his heart. Although he had the intention to kill Yi Guchen, there was a pack of wolves eyeing him covetously. They were still in the second stage of the elite gathering. If he and Yi Guchen were to fight to the death, they would not be able to resist when Xia Yubing and the rest made their move. Do you think that I will let you go just like that? Qin Aoshi's expression was still sinister. When have I, Dugubai, ever thought of retreating? I just don't want to work for others. If you want to fight to the death, I will definitely accompany you to the end. Yi Guchen's voice was sonorous. His body was as straight as a sword as a surge of battle-intent soared into the heavens. Fine, Dugubai, I will let you live for a few more days. Wait for me to take your life. Although Qin Aoshi's eyes were filled with unwillingness, he had no other choice. Furthermore, there were still 2 more stages in the elite gathering. Qin Aoshi was not afraid that Yi Guchen would escape. His gaze was filled with bone-deep hatred as he looked at Yi Guchen. Then he picked up Qin Baishan's corpse and turned to leave. Seeing Qin Aoshi leave, Yi Guchen breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Although he did not fear Qin Aoshi, this was indeed not a good time. However, there was one thing that Yi Guchen was certain of. He and Qin Aoshi would definitely have an ultimate battle to the death. In the end, only one of them could survive. Yi Guchen slightly tilted his head and swept his gaze across Xia Yubing and the rest. For some unknown reason, Xia Yubing and the others felt a faint sense of fear when they saw Yi Guchen's eyes, which still had some remnants of blood redness in them. This person? Xia Yubing had a strange feeling in her heart, but she couldn't explain it clearly. Everyone, the show has ended. It's time for you to leave. Yi Guchen spoke with a hoarse voice. Ever since he had transformed into Dugubai, his voice had always been like this. I originally thought that Su Jianshi was the biggest dark horse. But now, it seems that young Master Dugu is the most mysterious existence. Xia Yubing faintly smiled as she spoke with an indescribable tone. Yi Guchen looked at Xia Yubing. His enemy was right in front of him. However, his state of mind was unexpectedly calm. Because it was not the time for the final conclusion, but it would be soon. Yi Guchen faintly sighed in his heart as he directly took Ji Hongmei and Mo Lin's origin rings. As for Xia Yubing, Murong Ditian, and Shen Tu Miao, they felt a slight ripple in their hearts when they saw this scene. Ji Hongmei and Mo Lin were both #1 heavenly prides. They obviously had a lot of beast cores in their hands. However, the fact that Yi Guchen was able to compete with Qin Aoshi's strength made them hesitate. In the end, Xia Yubing and the rest also left. Looking at the departing figures of Xia Yubing and the rest, Yi Guchen's gaze was filled with deep meaning. Xia Yubing, just you wait. Very soon, I will bring you a true surprise. Yi Guchen's lips carried a cold smile. However, before that, Yi Guchen still had something to deal with. Did they escape in that direction? Yi Guchen looked at the forest in the south. Chapter 152. When Yi Guchen was in the blood demon's lair, he had already sensed the aura that was hiding in the dark. If he wasn't mistaken, the aura that carried the scent of blood belonged to Luo Cheng. When he thought of Luo Cheng, Yi Guchen's eyes turned cold again. With Yi Guchen's intelligence, how could he not connect the dots? This series of events must have happened because Luo Cheng, who had escaped, was secretly adding fuel to the fire. Even Qin Badian and the other 2 couldn't escape. Do you think you can? Yi Guchen looked towards the south. After settling Su Jianshi down for the time being, Yi Guchen headed towards the forest in the south. In the forest, a blood-red figure was running away. This Dugubai is too terrifying. He didn't reveal his strength before, but I didn't expect him to be so strong. Damn it. The figure that was running at high speed was none other than Luo Cheng, who had escaped. As the mastermind behind the scenes, Luo Cheng had been watching in the dark. When Qin Badian and the other 2 were trying to kill Su Jianshi, he still felt the joy of revenge. But when Yi Guchen came out of seclusion and killed the 3 of them, and even fought to a draw with the enraged Qin Aoshi, Luo Cheng was scared out of his wits. He didn't expect that the person he had provoked was actually such a terrifying existence who had concealed his strength. Moreover, Luo Cheng knew very well that with Yi Guchen's character, he would definitely kill him. So when Yi Guchen and Qin Aoshi were fighting, he immediately ran away. But how could he escape from Yi Guchen's senses? Coupled with Yi Guchen's wave-like minute steps, it didn't take long for him to catch up to Luo Cheng. Damn it. This Duguwubai is a monster. Since when did such a person appear in the Saint Origin dynasty? Luo Cheng clenched his teeth with a trace of regret in his heart. As someone who lived on the edge of a blade all year round, he truly felt a sense of danger. He didn't even feel such a sense of danger when he was being chased by a divine soul realm expert. Where are you trying to escape to? In the dense forest in front of Luocheng, there was a figure in a blood-stained black robe. He wore the ice and fire dragon crystal armor and held the meteorite's soft sword in his hand. The tip of the sword was overflowing with a scarlet sword gleam. That pair of abyss-like, pitch-black eyes faintly surged with a touch of blood red. Duguwubai. Luo Cheng's face turned pale in an instant. His legs went soft and he actually fell to the ground. Cutting off one of your arms was giving you a chance, but you chose the path of death. Yi Guchen's tone was indifferent. Although Qin Batian and the other two had already been killed by him, Luo Cheng, who had added fuel to the fire, was the most hateful person. Duguwubai, spare me, give me a chance, I'm willing to be your servant, no, your slave. Luo Cheng knelt on the ground. His forehead hit the ground as he kept kowtowing. Yi Guchen walked up to Luo Cheng slowly. At this moment, Luo Cheng, who had his head bowed, suddenly had a ferocious look in his eyes. He suddenly leaped up with a crazed look on his face like a trapped beast. He held a blood-red dagger in his remaining hand and stabbed it at Yi Guchen's throat. Duguwubai, go to hell. Luo Cheng had been accumulating power for a long time, so his speed was extremely fast like a blood-red lightning bolt. Yi Guchen smiled coldly. He performed the 64 hexagrams of the Book of Changes and performed wave-like subtle steps. His figure instantly became blurry like a misty rain. This sure-kill attack of Luo Cheng's directly missed its target. Clang! A blood-red sword gleam flashed in the dim forest. In half a breath's time, Yi Guchen was already standing a few feet behind Luo Cheng. Luo Cheng maintained his posture of stabbing with his dagger. Yi Guchen sighed softly. A streak of blood appeared on Luo Cheng's neck. His entire head rolled on the ground with a thud. This famous heaven's pride of the great desolate mansion had fallen. After Yi Guchen picked up Luo Cheng's origin ring, his figure flashed and left. In the Black Sky Mountain Range, the news of Yi Guchen killing Ji Hongmei, Qin Batian, and Mo Lin had already spread throughout the mountain range. Almost all the participating cultivators knew about this news. When they first heard this news, the first reaction in the minds of all the warriors was, they didn't believe it. One must know that those who could obtain the title of number 1 Heaven's Pride of the prefecture were not weak. Although Ji Hongmei and Mo Lin were ranked near the bottom of the top 10 Heaven's Pride of the prefecture, they were still number 1 Heaven's Pride. Yi Guchen killed them as if they were dogs. None of the cultivators believed it at first. However, when Xia Yubing, Murong Ditian, Shen Tu Miao, and the others confirmed this news, even if they didn't believe it, they had no choice but to accept it. Moreover, the news of Yi Guchen fighting Qin Aoshi to a draw also spread. Qin Aoshi was much stronger than Ji Hongmei, Mo Lin, and the others. Even so, he could only fight to a draw with Yi Guchen. Although many people guessed that it was because Qin Aoshi hadn't used his full strength, not many people looked down on Yi Guchen anymore. Yi Guchen's actions would cause a huge commotion. At this moment, he brought the unconscious Su Jianshi to the side of a lake. Although Yi Guchen had already fed Su Jianshi a medicinal pill, she still showed no signs of waking up. Yi Guchen sighed as he looked at Su Jianshi's tattered clothes and her delicate body covered in whip marks. It was the hardest thing to accept a beauty's favor. He was very puzzled as to why Su Jianshi would do so much for him. However, Yi Guchen didn't want to think too much about it. After a bit of hesitation, Yi Guchen still untied Su Jianshi's clothes. Chapter 153. Su Jianshi blushed because of Yi Guchen's treatment of her wound. But when Su Jianshi learned that Yi Guchen had killed the 4 of them, including Luo Cheng, she became silent. She fell silent. Su Jianshi bit her lip and said, "I'm sorry. But I should be the one saying that." Yi Guchen was a little surprised. Su Jianshi said, although you killed Qin Batian and the others, you formed a grudge with Qin Aoshi. Furthermore, the forces behind them won't let you go. It's fine. Sword cultivators like us have nothing to fear in the face of danger. It's better to say that the more enemies I have, the better my path of the sword will be. Yi Guchen's black hair fluttered in the wind as he spoke. His eyes were filled with confidence. This wasn't arrogance, but the pride of a sword cultivator. Even Su Jianshi, who had always been carefree, felt a little dazed when she saw Yi Guchen's carefree demeanor. Although the youth in front of him had an extremely ordinary appearance, his pride as a sword cultivator was enough to subdue others. Unknowingly, Su Jianshi found that there was a faint figure in her heart that she couldn't get rid of. Before this, the only man she was curious about was the sword sex Yi Guchen, whom she had never met before. But now, Su Jianshi felt that the youth standing before her was more worthy of being the sword sex grandmaster than Yi Guchen. Of course, this was because she didn't know that Dugubai was Yi Guchen. You're right. Sword cultivators like us have nothing to fear. Don't worry, no one can touch you with me around. If anyone dares to touch you, I'll beat them up. Su Jianshi seemed to have recovered her energy. She clenched her fists and put on a cute and fierce appearance. That's more like you. Yi Guchen smiled faintly. Su Jianshi also smiled. By the lakeside that was as clear as a mirror, the young girl's smile was like a blooming flower. That sweet smile caused Yi Guchen to become absent-minded for a moment. Silly boy, let me ask you a question. Su Jianshi crossed her jade-like arms behind her back and slightly peeked at Yi Guchen. What's the problem? Yi Guchen asked. Are you willing to be my vice alliance leader? Su Jianshi blushed. Yi Guchen was slightly taken aback. By the lakeside, a young girl with a blush on her face was as beautiful as a fairy. Her sweet smile seemed to be able to melt one's heart. But Yi Guchen was at a loss for words. Su Jianshi's eyelids fluttered as her thick and curled eyelashes fluttered. Her eyes were as clear as autumn water with a trace of anticipation. I'm willing. Since Su Jianshi was willing to die for him, how could Yi Guchen be stingy with a promise? Then it's settled. Su Jianshi smiled in a charming manner. Yi Guchen regained his senses and said, all right, the Black Sky Mountain Range's hunt will end in a few days. Let's organize the beast corps. But Su Jianshi nodded. Although she was currently injured, she still smiled brightly. After obtaining the origin rings of Qin Batian and the others, they had also obtained a lot of beast cores. Yi Guchen estimated that Su Jianshi might be able to reach the top 3 or even first place with the addition of a rank 5 Blood Demon's beast core. Su Jianshi was also smiling like a flower. Her mind was filled with plans to form the Righteous Alliance. Black Sky Mountain Range's central region. In a dark and remote forest, a handsome young man in white was slaying a rank 3 demonic beast. He wiped off the blood on his sword and put away the beast core. This young man was Murong Ming of the Murong family. Damn it. This stage is about to end. Finding even a single level 3 Yao beast is difficult. Big Brother should be done as well. However, according to Big Brother's information, that Duguubai actually possesses such a high level of combat power, Murong Ming mumbled. The Big Brother he was referring to was naturally Murong Ditian. Murong Ming was naturally surprised by the news of Duguubai, but that was it. But if he knew that Duguubai was Yi Guchen, he would probably have a mental breakdown. Just as Murong Ming was packing up and preparing to leave, a figure appeared in the dense forest not far away at an unknown time. That figure was covered in a gray cloak. Oh, who are you? I'm Murong Ming of the Murong family. Murong Ming frowned and shouted coldly when he saw the gray-robed figure. That gray-robed figure suddenly trembled when he heard Murong Ming's words. Murong Ming sneered. He faintly remembered that this gray-robed figure was a dark horse called Hong Chenshua. Murong Ming felt a little proud in his heart when he saw the gray-robed man's trembling reaction after he reported his origin. As a disciple of a super family, he had such confidence. However, Tatsush, the figure of the gray-robed man nearby instantly became blurry. In the next moment, a cold and sharp sword edge directly slashed towards Murong Ming's neck. The gray-robed figure's actions were too fast and too sudden. Murong Ming could not react in time. The sword slashed across Murong Ming's neck, causing blood to spurt out. "You are..." Murong Ming caught a glimpse of the face under the hood when the sword slashed across. Murong Ming's eyes widened. A trace of surprise appeared on his face before it froze. Plop. Murong Ming's body fell to the ground as blood flowed out. Murong family, the 12th one. Aside from Murong Ditian, the rest of the Murong family disciples have been killed. It's a pity that the Blood Listening Tower will not be participating in the elite gathering. Otherwise, that sword demon would have definitely died by my hands. The gray-robed figure's voice was pleasant to the ears, but it carried a bone-deep hatred. "When we reach the 4th stage, Murong Ditian, you will also die." The gray-robed figure became blurry again and disappeared. 15 days later, the 2nd stage of the Black Sky Mountain Range had come to an end. The martial artists who were still alive all walked out of the mountain range. There were more than 1,000 cultivators who participated in the 2nd stage. However, only about 700 of them walked out alive. It was obvious that the remaining 300 to 400 people had all died in the Black Sky Mountain Range. Looking at the wounded cultivators who walked out of the mountain range, the spectators sighed. The 10 Prefectures elite gathering was indeed worthy of being the most prestigious gathering in the Saint Origin dynasty. Those who were able to stand out in the end were the true geniuses with outstanding talent, strength, and experience. When Yi Guqin and Su Jianshi walked out of the Black Sky Mountain Range, the bustling atmosphere seemed to have been cut off abruptly and fell into a strange silence. Tens of thousands of gazes fell on the two of them almost uniformly. Of course, there were even more gazes that fell on Yi Guqin. Feeling the strange atmosphere, Su Jianshi stuck out her tongue and patted Yi Guqin's shoulder. "Silly boy, you're on fire." Yi Guqin shook his head indifferently and ignored the gazes. However, at this moment, 3 extremely majestic auras suddenly came from the distant sky. The 3 figures traversed the void and their auras were astonishing. It was like a tribulation cloud, bringing along an oppressive feeling. Traversing the void? They're experts at the spiritual bridge realm and there are 3 of them. Many cultivators were shocked by the pressure and couldn't help but cry out. Yi Guqin narrowed his eyes with a trace of solemnity. What will come will come. Chapter 154. The 3 figures stepped into the void, causing ripples in the void. One of them was a middle-aged man in black armor. His hands were behind his back, and he had sharp eyebrows and fierce eyes. He exuded a majestic and oppressive aura. He was the Qin clan's spiritual bridge expert, Qin Baijian. The other person was an old man in a black robe. His hair and beard were all white, but his slightly turbid old eyes were surging with monstrous anger. The old man was the Mo clan's patriarch, Mo Yunzi. The last person was a beautiful woman in a pink palace dress. She was mature and charming, like a beautiful snake. However, her true qi wasn't any weaker than Qin Baijian and Mo Yunzi. She was the Spring Cloud Pavilion Master. The 3 heaven and earth spirit bridge experts rushed over at the same time after receiving the message from their clansmen. At this moment, they were filled with rage. The auras of the 3 experts were like wild wolves that drowned out the heavens. 3 cold gazes fell on Yi Guqin. A suffocating pressure pressed down on Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin groaned and took a few steps back. His face was slightly pale. At this moment, Yi Guqin's hand was held by a soft jade. Su Jianshi held Yi Guqin's hand tightly and stood beside him. Su Jianshi. Yi Guqin paused. He actually didn't want to drag Su Jianshi into this. After all, these weren't ordinary experts, but 3 spiritual bridge experts. "Are you looking down on me?" Su Jianshi pouted. She had her own persistence and stubbornness. Yi Guqin could only smile bitterly when he heard this. However, his frozen heart was quietly covered by a wisp of warmth. "You're Duguubai?" The first to speak was Qin Baijian, a famous expert known as the Qin clan's war monarch. He was extremely powerful. "I am. What can I do for you?" Yi Guqin raised his eyebrows with a calm expression. "Good lad, your methods are so vicious. You killed my grandson, Mo Lin, and yet you still look so relaxed. On the other side, a strand of a cold expression surged onto Mo Yunzi's face that was like the bark of a withered tree. Mo Lin was his most beloved grandson. Since Yi Guchen had killed Mo Lin, Mo Yunzi would naturally not let him off. You killed the genius of Spring Cloud Pavilion, Ji Hongmei. Kid, you are very brave, but at the same time, you are very stupid. The Spring Cloud Pavilion master spoke. Her voice was extremely gentle, but it was extremely cold. When cultivators fight, life and death are up to fate. If the one who died today was me, I'm sure none of you would feel anything. Facing the cold gazes of the three powerhouses, Yi Guchen calmly faced them. This attitude caused the surrounding martial artists to sigh in admiration in their hearts. Not to mention other things, just this bearing in front of a powerhouse was not something an ordinary cultivator could do. Kid, you were unknown before. I'm sure you're not a genius from a major faction. You should know the principle that too much is easy to break. Qin Baijian's tone was cold, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Although the Qin clan still had Qin Aoshi, Qin Badian was still a genius of the direct line of descent. Now that he had died at the hands of Yi Guchen, Qin Baijian would not let Yi Guchen off. Sword cultivators like us show off our abilities and eliminate injustice with a single strike. If I don't do anything, do you think I'll allow those clowns to act presumptuously in front of me? Yi Guchen's tone was sonorous, and his aura was like a sharp sword that soared into the sky. His words were like a thunderclap. Many martial artists sighed. Some sword cultivators were so emotional that their faces were flushed red. They looked at Yi Guchen with eyes full of respect. Eliminating injustice with a single strike was the dream of many sword cultivators. But how many of them could actually do it? When Su Jianshi was surrounded by Qin Batian and the others, the spectating martial artists were disdainful and displeased. After all, 3 heavens' prides had forced a girl to die. But when Yi Guchen killed the 3 of them, the martial artists felt as if they had vented their anger and were incomparably carefree. But to be honest, even if they defeated Qin Badian and the others, they wouldn't dare to kill them. After all, the 3 of them had extraordinary backgrounds. But Yi Guchen had killed them. Moreover, he had killed them cleanly and without any hesitation. Everyone had no choice but to be convinced by his magnanimity and methods. But those words were extremely grating in the ears of the 3 Qin clan's experts. How dare you? Mo Yunzi's gaze was as if he wanted to cut Yi Guchen into 1,000 pieces. The killing intent of the 3 experts filled the sky, causing the sky to change color. A suffocating pressure came crashing down. Many martial artists felt their chests tighten, and their footsteps became unsteady. It was easy to imagine how much pressure Yi Guchen, who was at the center of the pressure, was enduring. However, even in the face of such pressure, Yi Guchen was still fearless. Because he had made up his mind that the 3 experts wouldn't dare to make a move now. Finally, in the suffocating confrontation, a voice slowly sounded. This farce should end for now. The elite meeting isn't over yet. The one who spoke was Elder Qing He of the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest. Although Elder Qing He was only at the life and death threshold, he was still an elder of the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest. Therefore, even if the 3 Qin clans' cultivations were higher than Elder Qing He, they couldn't ignore him. So it's Elder Qing He of the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest. It's just that this kid is cruel and ruthless. Although he has some talent, I'm afraid he'll become a demon who only knows how to kill in the future. Mo Yunzi's face darkened as he spoke. I also think we should end it for now. We'll deal with this after the elite meeting. Zhao Jingting of the Limitless Sword Sect also spoke. Hearing this, the 3 experts' faces changed. How could they not know that the Limitless Sword Sect and the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest had the intention to recruit Yi Guchen? However, they could imagine that if Yi Guchen successfully passed the elite meeting and entered one of the 7 major powers, with the Qin clan, Mo clan, and Spring Cloud Pavilion's foundations, they wouldn't dare to kill Yi Guchen. After understanding the situation, Qin Baijian, Mo Yunzi, and the Spring Cloud Pavilion Master's faces darkened. Third uncle, don't worry. This Duguobai won't live until the end of the elite meeting. I'll definitely kill him in the 4th round. Just when the atmosphere was in a deadlock, Chin Aoshi stood out. His voice was as cold as ice, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. All right, then we'll let this kid live for a few more days. Qin Baijian's face softened a little. Although Mo Yunzi and the Spring Cloud Pavilion Master were furious, they could only give up for now. If they directly attacked, they wouldn't be provoking the Limitless Sword Sect and the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest, but the entire 7 major powers. This was because the elite meeting was jointly organized by the 7 major powers. Dugubai, I admit that you're very strong. However, you'll die by my hands. Furthermore, with the sharpness you've displayed, I'm not the only one who wants to kill you. Chin Aoshi slowly raised his thunder spear and pointed it at Yiguchin. If you want to attack, I'll accompany you anytime. However, you'll have to be prepared to face the same fate as Chin Badian. Yiguchin said indifferently. The corner of Chin Aoshi's eyes twitched. He suppressed the anger in his heart and coldly glanced at Yiguchin. The storm had temporarily stopped. However, after the incident with Yiguchin, another storm arose. The center of this storm was the Murong clan. There were many geniuses in the Murong clan, but only Murong Ditian had walked out of the Black Sky Mountain range. Even his younger brother, Murong Ming, had been found dead in the mountain range. This caused everyone in the Murong clan to be furious. Murong Ditian was even more furious. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that this was an attempt to exterminate the Murong clan. However, because the sky surveying spiritual eyes couldn't capture it, there was no way to determine who had done it. This time, the Murong clan had suffered a huge loss. Out of the group of elite disciples, only Murong Ditian was left. It was quite a miserable situation. Chapter 155. Although the incident at the Murong family had caused another uproar, the elite meeting still had to go on. All right, it's time to report the results. The old man who presided over the meeting said. Many warriors became nervous when they heard this. After all, only the top 500 warriors could enter the 3rd stage of the 2nd stage. At the same time, many people looked at Yiguchin. They were curious about how many beast cores Dugubai had obtained since he could kill a rank 3 demonic beast in one strike. Some warriors in the Black Sky Mountain range also looked at Yiguchin with curiosity. They had heard that Yiguchin had killed a rank 5 blood demonic beast before. In fact, many people did not believe it because a rank 5 demonic beast was comparable to a life and death chamber expert. How could a chi refining realm warrior kill one? However, some people had a faint premonition in their hearts after seeing Yi Gu Chen's battle record. This news isn't groundless. But no matter what, the results would be out soon. Yuanyang Mansion, Zhou Ling, 2 rank 3 beast cores. Score 20 points. Many invigilators began to calculate the results. The number of beast cores and the score of each warrior were clearly counted. But the majority of the martial artists only harvested rank 3 demonic pills. Furthermore, it was even 3 or 4. After all, not everyone was like Yi Guchen, who had the strength to kill a rank 3 demonic beast in one strike. When the number of beast cores was checked, the number and quality of the beast cores had obviously increased. Mystic Spirit Mansion, by Yenji, 16 rank 3 beast cores and 1 rank 4 beast core. Score, 210 points. An invigilator said, which attracted the attention of many warriors. Bai Yenji is the number 1 genius of the Mystic Spirit Mansion. Many people looked over. Bai Yenji was dressed in a white robe that was spotless. He looked handsome and refined, giving off an elegant feeling. There was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. He waved a folding fan in one hand and had a tang saber at his waist. His expression was calm. He knew that he would definitely pass and his ranking would not be too low. No wonder he's the number 1 genius of a mansion. The gap is too big. Many warriors sighed. As time passed, most of the warriors' beast cores were counted. Donglin Mansion's Chin Aoshi, 23 rank 3 beast cores and 2 rank 4 beast cores. Score, 330 points. Along with the invigilator's slightly shocked voice, the surrounding martial artists all sucked in a breath of air. Chin Aoshi's strength is indeed terrifying. He killed rank 3 demonic beasts with ease. He even killed rank 4 demonic beasts. Such a dazzling battle record attracted the attention of the people from the 7 great factions. Chin Aoshi's expression was still cold as he glanced at Yiguchen. Yiguchen did not care. Soon it was his turn. When Yiguchen took out the beast cores, almost everyone's eyes fell on him. After the invigilator finished counting, he looked at Yiguchen strangely and said, Milky Way Prefecture's Dugubai, 17 rank 3 beast cores and 2 rank 4 beast cores. Score, 270 points. When the invigilator shouted out, many martial artists also revealed astonished expressions. However, the 7 major forces members on the high platform frowned slightly. This result might be very eye-catching for ordinary geniuses. After all, Bai Yenji of the Mystic Spirit Mansion only got 210 points. But who was Dugu Bai? He had killed 3 geniuses in a row and was able to compete with Chin Aoshi. He was even rumored to have killed a rank 5 blood demon. How could his result be so low? Could it be that the news is fake? But then again, it's a rank 5 blood demon. Even if it's not at its peak, it's not something a Chi Refinement Realm warrior can kill. Some of the 7 major forces members whispered to each other. Yiguchen shook his head and didn't pay attention to the discussions around him and the 7 major forces' doubtful gazes. He had given most of the beast cores to Su Jianshi. Apart from the rank 3 beast cores, he only kept the 2 rank 4 beast cores from the Heaven-Earth demonic ape. He didn't care about his ranking as long as he was in the top 500. That's all you got? Chin Aoshi snorted with disdain. Yiguchen ignored him. Next, a few more geniuses' results were announced. Shinta Miao, Yuan Mie, Prince Yuani, Murong Ditian, Zither Fairy, and the others all obtained stunning results. Milky Way Prefecture's Xia Yubing. As the Milky Way Prefecture's invigilator spoke, the noisy atmosphere suddenly quieted down. Without the 2 dark horses, Su Jianshi and Yiguchen, Xia Yubing was undoubtedly the fastest rising and most eye-catching prodigy. Xia Yubing wore a blue robe. Her skin was as smooth as jade, and her temperament was as cold as smoke. Her eyes were indifferent and very calm. She had absolute confidence in herself. She wanted to climb from the first stage to the last. This was Xia Yubing's ambition. She wanted to be the most dazzling existence in this elite gathering. Milky Way Prefecture's Xia Yubing, 47 rank 3 beast cores, 4 rank 4 beast cores, 670 points. The invigilator spoke with a trembling voice. The surroundings were deathly silent. Only the cultivators were left holding their breaths. Many cultivators couldn't hide their shock. 47 beast cores. This Xia Yubing is really powerful. She's not weaker than Yuan Mie, Shinta Miao, and the others. There's also a rank 4 Yao Dan. There are 4 of them, and they were all killed by her alone. She really is worthy of being called a proud daughter of heaven. Xia Yubing's result undoubtedly caused an uproar and shock. Even the people from the 7 big powers were extremely shocked. After obtaining the North River Sword Monarch's inheritance, Xia Yubing has really soared. Elder Qing He of the Sword Sect Tower Forest Side. This Xia Yubing is also the target of our Limitless Sword Sect, said Zhao Jingting of the Limitless Sword Sect. Xia Yubing is a woman. She's most suitable to join our Consonant's Divine Palace. An elder from Consonant's Divine Palace also appeared. It was a charming woman. It was very clear that Xia Yubing had already completely become the target that the 7 great powers were fighting over. Seeing the numerous martial artists' gazes of admiration, as well as the discussions of the 7 great powers, Xia Yubing's lips curved into a faint smile. Next, Milky Way Prefecture's Su Jianshi. Suddenly, the Milky Way Prefecture's invigilator was speechless. The abrupt interruption attracted the attention of many cultivators. But when they saw Su Jianshi's actions, their jaws almost dropped to the ground. This was because Su Jianshi was pouring out beast cores like beans for the examiners to count. Could she be more domineering? Many cultivators cursed in their hearts. At the same time, they were shocked. Xia Yubing also looked over. She wanted to see if Su Jianshi's results would surpass hers. Chapter 156. 3rd Grade Beast Cores, 63. 4th Grade Beast Cores, 4. Just as the invigilator's voice trembled and he was about to report the score, he paused. This is a 5th grade beast core? The invigilator looked as if he had seen a ghost. He picked up a dark red Yao core with an abnormally dense Yao Qi and looked at it over and over again before confirming. 5th grade beast core. This was like a sudden clap of thunder. Everyone was dumbfounded. A 5th grade beast was almost comparable to a life and death chamber expert. The old man in charge of the competition had said that he didn't expect anyone to obtain a 5th grade beast core, and that anyone who did would get 200 points. But now, when this 5th grade beast core appeared, even the old man was stunned. He couldn't believe it. The news is true. Many warriors, after recovering from their shock, turned their gazes to Yi Guqin in unison. Even an idiot knew that Su Jianshi didn't obtain this 5th grade beast core by herself. This Duguobai really killed a 5th grade blood demon. Not to mention ordinary cultivators, even the people from the 7 major factions were shocked. Especially those who doubted Yi Guqin's results. They felt as if they had been slapped in the face, and their cheeks burned with pain. How is this possible? That's a 5th grade beast. How did he kill it? Lu Tianxin jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Heaven's pride, a true heaven's pride. Even if he didn't kill a 5th grade beast in its peak state, it's still shocking enough. Zhao Jingting slapped the armrest, and a trace of excitement appeared on his face. How could such a talent not enter the limitless sword sect? Many people were shocked. This Duguobai had toppled their imaginations time and time again. As for Xia Yubing, although she didn't lose her composure, her jade-like face had long since lost its smile. Dark clouds gathered between her brows. She looked at Yi Guqin with her icy blue eyes. There was a hint of surprise in her eyes. Even in a weakened state, Xia Yubing knew that she wouldn't have a chance of victory against a 5th grade blood demon unless she used all her trump cards. However, Yi Guqin had directly killed him. Su Jianshi, Duguobai. Xia Yubing softly murmured as a chill condensed in her blue eyes. Yi Guqin remained indifferent in the face of everyone's astonishment and disbelief. He did not care about these false reputations. However, he felt an extreme killing intent coming from Qin Baijian and the other two in the air. It was obvious that Qin Baijian, Mo Yunzi, and the Spring Cloud Pavilion Master's killing intent towards Yi Guqin had grown even stronger after witnessing Yi Guqin's ability to kill a rank 5 blood demon. The 3 Spirit Bridge of Heaven and Earth experts looked at each other and had a tacit understanding. Such a genius with limitless potential could not be left alive. He had to be nipped in the bud. Otherwise, when he grew up in the future, it would be a fatal blow to the 3 major forces. Yi Guqin turned a blind eye to this murderous aura. In the end, Su Jianshi took first place in the 2nd stage with a score of 1,030 points. This attracted a lot of attention. Xia Yubing's face was cold as she took 2nd place. She was slightly dimmer than Su Jianshi. As for Yi Guqin, he was in the top 10, but he did not care. Everyone, the top 500 have been chosen. You may participate in the 3rd stage. The 3rd stage can be described as simple, but it can also be difficult. The old man that presided over the meeting smiled mysteriously, and then he said, the 3rd stage is called the Elite Arena Guardian Battle. At that time, the elite disciples of the 7 great powers will be the guardians of the arena. All of you only have to persist for 15 minutes against them to pass. Many cultivators frowned when they heard the old man's words. The 3rd stage seemed similar to the 1st stage's puppet battle, but it was different in nature. Puppets were inanimate objects. Although their physical strength was strong, they could not think or use martial arts. However, the elite disciples of the 7 great forces were all true geniuses. Their strength and methods were all extraordinary. To a certain extent, they were even more difficult to deal with than Divine Soul Realm puppets. It wasn't easy to last 15 minutes against the elite disciples of the 7 major forces. Alright, the elite arena battle will be held in 7 days outside the Black Sky Mountain Range. You can recuperate within these 7 days. Following the old man's words, some cultivators sat down cross-legged and began to recuperate. After all, There were many injured cultivators in the Black Sky Mountain range. You still need to recuperate. Yi Guchun took out all kinds of healing pills. Su Jianshi glanced at Yi Guchun from the corner of her eyes. She chuckled and took out a higher-grade pill. Yi Guchun's expression froze. He had forgotten about Su Jianshi's mysterious background. After all, she was someone who could casually take out celestial chalcedony. During these 7 days, Yi Guchun and Su Jianshi were also adjusting their conditions. Yi Guchun was doing well. His recovery was strong and his blood was abundant. His injuries from the battle were mostly healed. Su Jianshi was slightly worse. However, with the help of many pills and spiritual herbs, as well as Yi Guchun's true qi, her injuries were mostly healed. You haven't fully recovered. Can you pass the next stage? Yi Guchun frowned slightly. Don't you trust me? I'm the sword fairy, heroine Su. Su Jianshi put her hands on her hips. Before she could finish her sentence, she pulled on her wounds and cried out in pain. Yi Guchun smiled faintly and shook his head. There was no lack of fun with Su Jianshi. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Outside the Black Sky Mountain range, 7 high platforms were built to represent the 7 major forces. During these few days, many disciples of the 7 major forces had come. The geniuses of the 7 major forces all had disdainful gazes and extraordinary auras. They looked at the participating cultivators as if they were ants. Only geniuses like Xia Yubing, Yuan Mie, and Shinta Miao were worthy of their attention. 7 days are almost up. Why aren't the disciples of the Limitless Sword Sect's Sun Moon Hall here? On the spectator stand, the charming lady from the Consonance Palace smiled and asked Zhao Jingting. The Sun Moon Hall was the gathering place of the Limitless Sword Sect's elite disciples. It was similar to the inner courtyard of the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest and the Heavenly Saber ranking of the Saber-conferred Monarch Palace. None of the brats from the Sun Moon Hall are willing to come. They're all trying to shirk their responsibilities. There aren't many opponents that can catch their attention, Zhao Jingting said indifferently. The moment he said that, the other 6 major forces' faces turned ugly. Didn't that mean that their elite disciples were inferior to the disciples of the Sun Moon Hall? However, the truth was as such. The disciples of the Limitless Sword Sect's Sun Moon Hall were indeed the strongest defenders of the 3rd stage. I reckon that it'll be difficult for any genius to pass this stage. The other forces thought in their hearts. Xian Hao, who was famous in the entire Saint Origin dynasty, was the most dazzling genius of the Sun Moon Hall. Chapter 157. Everyone, 7 days have passed. The elite arena defense battle will officially begin. Every participant will draw lots. Whichever faction they draw, they will challenge that faction's arena, the host announced loudly. The 500 martial artists who passed began to discuss. Please don't draw the Limitless Sword Sect. I heard that the Sun Moon Hall's disciples are the strongest. Xian Hao, who left his name on the sword-seeking steel, is one of the best. That's right. No one can draw the Limitless Sword Sect. However, the Saber-conferred Monarch Palace isn't having it easy either. The disciples on the Heavenly Saber list are all abnormally strong. The Sword Sect Pagoda Forest's inner sect seems to be having a better time than the other factions. Yi Guchun listened to the discussions of many warriors, and his complexion became somewhat strange. It sounded like the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest's inner sect was weaker than the other factions. On the spectator stand, Elder Qing He's expression didn't look good either. He turned to Chu Qingqi and said, "Qingqi, don't go easy this time. Otherwise, people will say that the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest's inner sect isn't as good as the Sun Moon Hall and the Heavenly Saber list." Yes, disciple obeys. Chu Qingqi nodded slightly. Soon, the drawing of lots began. Yi Guchun and Su Jianshi lined up. Su Jianshi drew a jade stick with a flower engraved on it. This is the Consonance Divine Palace's jade stick. Wait for the challenge, the invigilator said. The surrounding martial artists looked at them with envy. The Consonance Divine Palace was full of women. Most of them were easygoing and gentle. Unless their strength was too weak, they would be able to last 15 minutes against them. Looks like my luck is pretty good. Su Jianshi smiled proudly, revealing her sparkling teeth. Yi Guchen also stepped forward and took out a jade stick. There was a picture of the sun and the moon carved on it. Yi Guchen frowned slightly. He didn't need the invigilator to tell him that it was the symbol of the Limitless Sword sect. Duguubai, go to the Limitless Sword sect's arena and wait. The invigilator's tone was a little regretful. After all, Yi Guchen's opponent was the Sun Moon Hall's disciple, who was known as the strongest arena defender. Are you okay? Su Jianshi looked at him with worry. It's fine. Yi Guchen waved his hand nonchalantly. Actually, he also wanted to meet the disciples of the Limitless Sword sect's Sun Moon Hall. Xian Hao, who had left his name on the sword seeking steel, was the top prodigy of the Sun Moon Hall. I wonder if the one who came to guard the arena would be Xian Hao? Yi Guchen was also very curious. As time passed, the elite arena guard battle was in full swing. As expected, the guardian of the sword sect's pagoda forest was Chu Qingqi. Yi Guchen had a good impression of Chu Qingqi. He watched Chu Qingqi make a move. The emerald sword qi swept out, and it was obviously more powerful than it had been at the sword-seeking steel. Chu Qingqi's cultivation is already half a step into the divine soul realm. No wonder he's an elite disciple of the inner yard. Yi Guchen was secretly shocked. Chu Qingqi was very young, but he was already a half-step divine soul expert. Boom! Accompanied by the rumbling of the sword qi, the challenger was directly blasted out of the arena. Chu Qingqi of the sword sect's pagoda forest is too powerful. This is already the 7th challenger in a row. Many warriors were shocked. Some warriors who had looked down on the inner yard of the sword sect's pagoda forest secretly complained. Yi Guchen also chuckled. He didn't care. Not long after, Su Jianshi's battle also began. However, Yi Guchen was a little stunned when he saw that kind of battle. The female guardian of the Consonance Palace was actually casually fighting with Su Jianshi while chatting. Is this the legendary verbal battle? Many warriors were dumbfounded. Hee, so little sister Su Jianshi, are you interested in joining our Consonance Palace? We're all sisters. The beautiful woman from Consonance Palace smiled gently at Su Jianshi. With Su Jianshi's potential and talent, they couldn't wait to recruit her. How could they blast her out of the arena? In the end, Su Jianshi and the woman happily chatted for 15 minutes before jumping out of the arena. Su Jianshi winked at Yi Guchen. She seemed very relaxed. Finally, it was Yi Guchen's turn. However, the Sun Moon Hall's disciples hadn't arrived yet. The guardian of the arena was an old acquaintance of Yi Guchen. It was Lu Tianying. Although Lu Tianying hadn't entered the Sun Moon Hall, his strength was enough to stop a large number of challengers. Of course, the premise was that they didn't encounter Xia Yubing, Yuan Mie, and the others. As Yi Guchen walked up the arena, Lu Tianying's expression turned ugly. He had clearly seen Yi Guchen's performance in the Black Sky Mountain range through the void light screen. Although Lu Tianying's cultivation had reached half-step divine soul, he still wasn't confident that he could defeat Yi Guchen. However, the anger in Lu Tianying's heart caused him to look at Yi Guchen with an extremely cold gaze. It was because of Yi Guchen that he was insulted by Zhao Jingting. Dugubai, I admit that you're strong, but you won't be able to pass this stage. Lu Tianying's tone was cold and his gaze was frosty. The reason why he could say such words was because his cultivation was higher than Yi Guchen's. Secondly, he believed that Yi Guchen wouldn't be able to recover so easily from the injuries he suffered in the previous battle. However, Lu Tianying didn't know that Yi Guchen had the perfect physique and his recovery was terrifying. Do you only know how to talk nonsense? Yi Guchen's hand flashed and the falling star flexible sword appeared in his hand. Humph, what a sharp-tongued brat. Lu Tianying's expression was cold as he stepped forward. His figure was as unpredictable as the wind. This was the Limitless Sword sect's movement technique, the 9 revolution wind cloud steps. Competing in movement techniques? Yi Guchen smiled faintly and stepped on the 64 hexagrams of the Book of Changes. His figure suddenly became like smoke and mist, like a swan riding the waves. It was the wave-like subtle steps. The two figures were blurry and sword lights overlapped. For a moment, It was hard to tell who was stronger. Where did this Duguobai get such an exquisite movement technique? Many warriors were surprised, including the 7 major forces. Movement techniques were relatively rare and most of them were very ordinary. For example, the 9 revolutions wind cloud steps of the Limitless Sword sect was already a top-notch movement technique. However, Yiguchen's movement technique was obviously more exquisite than the 9 revolutions wind cloud steps. How could these people know the wonders of martial arts in Jianghu? God-slaying sword technique, blood slaughter. Yiguchen's sword cut through the air and a blood-colored sword light pierced through the air. Feeling the terrifying murderous aura, Lu Tianying's expression changed slightly. His half-step divine soul strength completely erupted. At the same time, he held a long sword and performed an ultimate move. Rainbow sword technique, sun piercing. The rainbow sword technique was a powerful spirit-grade sword technique of the Limitless Sword sect. Lu Tianying performed it with his half-step divine soul strength. The sword chi was like a rainbow piercing through the sky. Its power was not weak either. Clang. The two collided and were actually neck and neck. I'm half-step divine soul, and he's only at the 8 revolutions chi refinement. As the sword chi cleansed the air, Lu Tianying's figure retreated. At the same time, his eyes were filled with astonishment. Again! Yiguchen did not give Lu Tianying a chance. What he wanted to do was not to hold on for a quarter of an hour, but to knock Lu Tianying off the stage. God-slaying sword technique, demon only. Yiguchen's sword chi pierced through the sky and a blood-colored murderous aura erupted. Yiguchen not only activated the power of Azura, but also faintly activated a trace of Azura sword intent. Boom! The sword swept out like a blood-colored sword. The biting cold murderous aura shook the surroundings. Rainbow sword technique, sun chasing. Lu Tianying's eyes were filled with horror. At this moment, he felt that Yiguchen was like an Azura in the sword. The powerful sword chi fluctuations made his face twitch, and he was shocked. A rainbow of sword chi burst out and collided with Yiguchen's sword. However, the result was Puchi. The rainbow of sword chi was easily torn apart by Yiguchen's blood-colored sword. Then, the sword slashed across Lu Tianying's shoulder, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Lu Tianying spat out blood and fell off the stage in a sorry state. Dead silence. All the cultivators, including the people from the 7 major forces, were stunned. They had only seen the arena defender knock the challenger off the stage. This was the first time they had seen the arena defender being knocked off the stage. Lu Tianying collapsed on the ground. He struggled to get up. His face was covered in dirt and there was a large bloody wound on his shoulder. It was so deep that the bone could be seen. Feeling the strange, contemptuous, and mocking gazes around him, he spat out another mouthful of blood. Lu Tianying, you're only SOSO. On the stage, Yiguchen stood tall. Although his face was ordinary, he had his own charisma. On the spectator stand, Zhao Jingting frowned. Although he wanted to rope in Yiguchen, the fact that Yiguchen had embarrassed Lu Tianying in front of so many people would make the Limitless Sword sect lose face. However, just as everyone was discussing this matter, a cold and arrogant voice came from afar. What an arrogant brat! Do you think you can humiliate my Limitless Sword sect's disciple? Hearing this voice, all the cultivators' faces changed. Was the Limitless Sword sect's Sun Moon Hall's disciple finally here? Chapter 158. The Limitless Sword sect was the leader of the 7 superpowers. The disciples of the Sun Moon Hall were the elites of the Limitless Sword sect. Every disciple who entered the Sun Moon Hall would be given the surname Xian. For example, Xian Hao was the most outstanding genius of the Sun Moon Hall. It could be seen that the Sun Moon Hall was highly valued. It could be said that anyone who could enter the Sun Moon Hall would be considered as one of the top geniuses in the Saint Origin dynasty. That cold voice came from afar, causing everyone to cast their gazes in that direction. Could it be Xian Hao? Many people were curious. Xian Hao was almost the top of the younger generation in the Saint Origin dynasty. After all, he was a genius who could leave his name on the sword-seeking steel. A figure came from afar. Although he was not a spirit bridge expert, he could fly at a low altitude with the help of the sword controlling technique of the Limitless Sword sect. It was a young man in black. His eyes were like lightning and his aura was cold. He carried a long sword on his back and there was a sun and moon pattern unique to the Limitless Sword sect on his chest. "It's Xianing." Some warriors who knew him said. "Xianing." Yi Guchen frowned. He also vaguely knew this person. Although this Xianing was not as prominent as Xian Hao, he was also a famous genius. He was one of the geniuses in the Sun Moon Hall, second only to Xian Hao. "It's Xianing." TSKSK, those who got the Limitless Sword sect are in trouble. Xianing is one of the top in the Sun Moon Hall. He's very powerful. Some warriors who got the Limitless Sword sect's name turned green and complained incessantly. Xian Ying's figure was like a black eagle as he landed on the arena. His aura was cold and vigorous. The soul fluctuation that was faintly emitted made Yi Guchen's face turn serious. Divine Soul Realm. Xianing had obviously reached the Divine Soul Realm, unlike Lu Tianying and Chu Qingqi, who were only half a step away from the Divine Soul Realm. Reaching the Divine Soul Realm at such a young age, the Sun Moon Hall is indeed extraordinary. Yi Guchen thought to himself. When Xianing released his soul energy, the surrounding martial artists were shocked. "Zhao Jingting, looks like your Limitless Sword sect doesn't want to let a single martial artist pass this time." Elder Qin, he said indifferently. "This Xianing isn't the strongest in my Sun Moon Hall. If he can't even last 15 minutes against Xianing, then how can he be considered a genius?" Zhao Jingting replied with a cold smile. "Senior brother Xianing, since you're here, you must help me teach that Dugubai a lesson." Seeing Xianying's arrival, Lu Tianying felt as though he had found a life-saving straw. "You've embarrassed the Limitless Sword sect. However, it's time to teach that brat a lesson." Xianying's gaze was indifferent, as if he was saying something natural. Hearing Xianying's cold voice, Yi Guchen laughed. "Perhaps you have misunderstood. Since I have already defeated Lu Tianying, I have already passed the 3rd stage. Why would I need to fight you again?" Yi Guchen said. Hearing Yi Guchen's words, all the martial artists began to discuss among themselves. They believed that Yi Guchen was afraid of Xianing. However, some of the martial artists asked themselves. If they were in Xianying's shoes, they would also have to submit to him. Su Jianshi, on the other hand, was relieved. She was afraid that Yi Guchen would fight Xianing without thinking. One had to know that there was a huge gap between the Qi Refinement Realm and the Divine Soul Realm. "Oh, you're afraid?" Xianing said with a mocking smile. Yi Guchen remained unmoved. "Dugubai, you're just a coward who bullies the weak and fears the strong." "What? Senior brother Xianing has arrived and you're already silent? Where's your pride? Where's your backbone?" Lu Tianying's mouth was like a machine gun. "Say another word." Yi Guchen was annoyed. His black eyes were suddenly swallowed by blood as he coldly looked at Lu Tianying. "Don't you dare say another word." Lu Tianying's face flushed red when he saw those azure eyes. He was instantly silenced. It was as if a pair of hands were tightly gripping his neck. He didn't dare to say another word. "Did I say I wanted to avoid the battle?" Yi Guchen held the meteor soft sword in his hand and said indifferently. As soon as he said this, it caused an uproar in the surroundings. Even Zhao Jingting and Elder Qin were surprised. They didn't understand where Yi Guchen's courage came from. "Sigh, this stupid kid is really—" Su Jianshi gritted her teeth and stomped her feet in anger. "Then accept the challenge." Xianying's eyes revealed a dangerous glint. "I can accept the challenge, but it's a little boring without a bet. How about this? You're a disciple of the Sun Moon Hall, so you should have the Void Sword art, right?" Yi Guchen smiled faintly. The Void Sword wave that he practiced was a remnant of the Void Sword art. So Yi Guchen had always wanted to obtain the complete Void Sword art. "You actually want the Void Sword art?" Xianing frowned slightly. Everyone could see that Yi Guchen wasn't showing weakness earlier. He just wanted the Void Sword art of the Limitless Sword sect. The Void Sword art was a superior spiritual tier sword art. Even in the Limitless Sword sect, only disciples of the Sun Moon Hall could learn it. Even Lu Tianying wasn't qualified. What qualifications do you have to make a bet with me? Xianying sneered. I also have a spiritual tier sword art, the god-slaying sword art. You can tell its power from Lu Tianying's miserable state, Yiguchen said. Hearing those words, Lu Tianying was so enraged that he fainted. A trace of greed flashed across Xianying's pitch-black eyes. Although he was a disciple of the Sun Moon Hall, he still had to pay a high price to obtain a spiritual tier sword art. Alright, since you're giving me a spiritual tier sword art, how can I not want it? There's no need for 15 minutes. As long as you can last for 10 breaths of time, you win. Xianying's confidence came from his own strength. There was a huge gap between the Divine Soul Realm and the Qi Refining Realm. Moreover, as a disciple of the Sun Moon Hall, his various sword arts were extraordinary. So he didn't think that he would lose to Yiguchen. TSK, as expected of a disciple of the Sun Moon Hall. He's really domineering. Many warriors sighed. Yiguchen's Dugubai was the real dark horse in this elite gathering. He was an existence that was on par with Qin Aoshi and the others. Xianying actually said that he couldn't last for 10 breaths of time. It was also very domineering. Words are no proof. Let's fight. Yiguchen's meteorite soft sword buzzed and trembled. A touch of blood spread along the blade. Xianying's face was relaxed. He looked at Yiguchen as if he was looking at an ant. In his opinion, anyone below the Divine Soul Realm was an ant. I'll let you know the gap between the Qi Refining Realm and the Divine Soul Realm. Xianying took a step forward. An invisible wave spread out like a ripple. Feeling the pressure on the soul level, the faces of all the warriors watching the battle changed dramatically. Yiguchen's face also turned slightly cold. Every transformation of the Divine Soul Realm would make a huge leap in soul power. Although Xianying was only an expert at the first transformation of the Divine Soul Realm, his soul power was not weak. It seems that I can finish you in one move, Xianying smiled coldly as he looked at Yiguchen, who was trembling under his soul pressure. Rainbow Sword Art, Sun Slashing. Xianying swung his sword. An awe-inspiring sword aura pierced through the air toward Yiguchen. Chapter 159. Although Xianying had performed the same rainbow sword technique as Lu Tianying, Xianying's long rainbow sword technique was different. Their power couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. The sword energy on Xianying's sword was as strong as the sun. It seemed to have materialized as it slashed towards Yiguchen's head. Condensed true energy. Many martial artists trembled. Condensed true energy was the hallmark of a Divine Soul Realm expert. They could control and condense true energy with their soul power and even turn it into a tangible weapon. It was rumored that experts in the 7th transformation of the Divine Soul Realm and above could condense true energy into all kinds of weapons. Xianying was only in the 1st transformation of the Divine Soul Realm, so he couldn't reach that level. However, he could still condense true energy to a near-tangible level and its power was boundless. God-slaying sword technique, Solitary Demon. Facing the attack of a Divine Soul Realm expert, Yiguchen didn't dare to underestimate it. He immediately used the second move of the God-slaying sword technique. With the support of the Shura power and the Shura sword intent, the power of Solitary Demon was earth-shattering. Yiguchen's black hair was flying in the wind. His eyes were filled with disdain. His eyes were swallowed by the color of blood. They were like 2 blood moons, carrying with them a murderous aura that made people shudder. Soul suppression. At the same time, Xianying's lips curled into a cold smile. At the same time, a wave of soul pressure pressed down on Yiguchen. You want to suppress me with just soul suppression? Yiguchen's expression was equally cold. Eye of Shura, activate. Although Yiguchen hadn't reached the Divine Soul Realm, there was also a mysterious blood-red fluctuation spreading out. Looking at the Eye of Shura, Xianying suddenly felt countless Shura illusions coming to disturb his mind. How is this possible? How can a Qi Refining Realm's illusions affect me? Xianying was astonished. The power of his sword couldn't help but weaken. Boom! When the two collided, it was as if a huge star had exploded. Powerful ripples of sword energy swept across the entire arena. Fortunately, the arena was engraved with a sturdy array. Otherwise, the arena would have been destroyed. Puchi. Yiguchen's figure retreated rapidly amidst the smoke and dust of the sword chi. He also spat out a mouthful of blood. Xian Ying's condensed sword chi hit him directly. On the other hand, Xian Ying had also taken a few steps back and there was a trace of blood on his face. You actually injured me? Xian Ying seemed to be in disbelief as he wiped away the trace of blood on his face with his finger. All the martial artists below the stage were silent. This was an unequal battle, but the result was shocking. 5 breaths of time left. Yiguchen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. You're courting death. The veins on Xian Ying's forehead bulged as he attacked again with his sword. The first style of the limitless sword arts, Shadowless Sword. Xian Ying sheathed his sword, then pulled it out abruptly and slashed across the sky. It's the limitless sword art of the Limitless Sword sect. Many cultivators cried out involuntarily. The eyes of the people from the 7 major forces also narrowed. The Limitless Sword art was the most famous sword art of the Limitless Sword sect. It was rumored that the first few styles were comparable to the spiritual level sword arts, and the later styles were even more powerful. In the end, they were not weaker than the king-level sword arts. The Shadowless Sword that Xian Ying had just displayed was the first style of the Limitless Sword art. Swoosh! Like an afterimage, Xian Ying's sword was as fast as lightning, causing the air to emit a sharp whistle. Yiguchen frowned as he felt an extreme sense of danger. With a clang, the power of ice and fire flowed on the surface of his body. In an instant, the ice and fire dragon crystal armor covered his body. His genuine chi flowed along the veins in his arms, and a powerful aura shot out from Yiguchen's fingertips. 6 Pulse Divine Sword. Rays of aura shot out from Yiguchen's fingertips, and it was as if more than 10 rays of sword light had shot out at the same time. They collided with the deadly sword shadow. Boom, boom, boom. Continuous explosions rang out. Yiguchen's expression turned serious, and Xian Ying's sword was already in front of him. Yiguchen stabbed out with the meteorite soft sword in his hand. The blood-red sword light pierced through the air and collided with Xian Ying's sword once again. However, this attack shocked Yiguchen. An extremely sharp sword chi shot out and hit the ice and fire dragon crystal armor on Yiguchen's chest. Yiguchen spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, his sword grazed Xian Ying's arm, causing blood to spurt out. 3 breaths of time left. Yiguchen's blood-red eyes were filled with stubbornness. The swords collided, and sparks flew. Many martial artists were dazzled by this scene. I'll finish you with one stroke. Yiguchen's strength and the ice and fire dragon crystal armor had exceeded Xian Ying's expectations. He knew that if he did not use his ultimate move, he would suffer a great loss. The second move of the Limitless Sword art, Endless Sword. Xian Ying's true chi surged. His soul power spread out and condensed all his true chi on the tip of his sword. The Limitless Sword art was a sword art that was extremely difficult to cultivate. Even Xian Ying had only cultivated the first 2 moves. Among the younger generation of the Limitless Sword sect, only Xian Hao had mastered the Limitless Sword art. Swoosh! Xian Ying struck out with his sword. The sword chi pierced through the heavens and split the earth. It was endless like a raging tide. The sword chi undulations even made some of the Sky Pride's eyes twitch slightly. The power of the Limitless Sword art was terrifying. Feeling the terrifying power of the Limitless Sword, Yiguchen's brows were extremely solemn. Under the circumstances of not exposing his identity, it was already difficult to withstand the Shadowless Sword, let alone the second move. However, would Yiguchen give up? If that's the case, Yiguchen's pair of blood-red eyes seemed to darken a little. Vaguely, there seemed to be an extremely powerful blood aura around Yiguchen's body. At this moment, time seemed to slow down. Looking at the endless sword chi tearing through the air, Yiguchen struck out with his sword. The third move of the god-slaying sword art, Yellow Spring. With one sword, the heavens and earth were destroyed. A sword light formed entirely from the blood light and Azura power tore through the heavens and earth. It was like a river of blood, colliding with Xian Ying's limitless sword qi. At the most critical moment, Yi Guqin finally activated all the Azura power in his body and displayed the third move of the god-slaying sword art. The sword shocked the heavens and earth, a sword into the yellow spring. Rumble! The boundless sword qi was actually split apart by Yi Guqin's sword. This is impossible. Xian Ying's face changed drastically. He was extremely confident in his move. The second move of the limitless sword art was not weaker than some of the mid-grade spiritual sword arts. He did not expect Yi Guqin to have such a trick up his sleeve. Puchi. Although Yi Guqin's sword broke the limitless sword qi, the terrifying impact still hit Yi Guqin's body. Even with the protection of the ice and fire dragon crystal armor, Yi Guqin's face paled. He spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying. He gripped the meteor-soft sword tightly and stabbed it into the ground, all the way to the edge of the stage. Xian Ying was also hit by the yellow spring sword. He blocked with his sword, but he was still forced back a dozen steps. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, but he swallowed it down. At this moment, everyone's eyes fell on Yi Guqin. The youth who was holding the meteor-soft sword was half kneeling on the ground because of his injuries. Although the corner of his mouth and chin were covered in blood, his eyes contained a cold stubbornness. 10 breaths have passed. Chapter 160. When Yi Guqin said that 10 breaths had passed, Xian Ying's face darkened. This time, Xian Ying had dug a hole and jumped into it himself. He had underestimated Yi Guqin's strength. Since you're so strong, why are you still a nobody? You're just pretending to be weak. Xian Ying's words were practically squeezed out from between his teeth. It was obvious that he had fallen into Yi Guqin's trap to obtain the Void Sword technique. But now, under the watchful eyes of everyone, how could he go back on his words as a disciple of the Sun Moon Hall? Please fulfill your end of the bet. Yi Guqin stood up. The blood in his body roared as he began to heal his injuries. The corners of Xian Ying's eyes twitched. Everyone's gazes made him feel uneasy. After a long while, Xian Ying's face darkened as he tossed a jade slip from his origin ring. Yi Guqin reached out and took it. He immediately examined it and compared it with the vacuum sword wave in his body. It was indeed the Void Sword technique. Thank you for the gift. Yi Guqin smiled faintly and cupped his fists at Xian Ying. Xian Ying flung his sleeves. He didn't want to look at Yi Guqin anymore. Of course, he wouldn't let Yi Guqin off so easily. When Yi Guqin got off the stage, Su Jianshi hurried forward and handed him the elixir. The way the crowd looked at Yi Guqin changed again. Xian Ying was an expert in the Divine Soul realm. Even though he was in the first transformation realm, there was still a huge gap between him and the Qi refinement realm. However, Yi Guqin managed to resist for 10 breaths of time and even managed to injure Xian Ying. Yi Guqin knew in his heart that his victory this time was actually due to luck. The main reason was that Xian Ying had underestimated him and said that he would take him down within 10 breaths. If it had been 15 minutes, Yi Guqin wouldn't have been able to hold on if he hadn't used all his skills. After Yi Guqin, a few other outstanding prodigies had appeared. For example, Yuan Mie, who had also left his name on the sword seeking steel, had done the same thing as Yi Guqin and directly blasted an elite disciple of the 9 Profound sect off the arena. This had attracted a lot of attention. And Yi Guqin also clearly felt that Yuan Mie did indeed possess sword intent. But he did not reveal it, so Yi Guqin did not know what sword essence Yuan Mie had comprehended. In addition, Qin Aoshi, Murong Ditian, Shinta Miao and the others had also easily passed through the 3rd stage. However, what Yi Guqin paid the most attention to was still Xia Yubing. The arena she was in was 3 imperial palaces. The 3 imperial palaces were also vaguely at the forefront of the 7 great factions. Therefore, the geniuses of the 3 imperial palaces were not weak either. However, in Xia Yubing's hands, that heavenly pride of the 3 imperial palaces actually couldn't even last a quarter of an hour before being frozen by the chilliness formed by the sword aura. This kind of result seemed to have been reversed. Xia Yubing was the one defending the stage. This kind of situation was out of everyone's expectations. Yi Guqin's expression was very serious. Xia Yubing's comprehension of the sword essence of ice had exceeded his expectations. Could it be that Xia Yubing has already touched the threshold of that level? Yi Guchen thought to himself. The so-called level was naturally the realm after sword intent, the way of the sword. Sword intent, way of the sword. Although there was only a difference of one word, they were two completely different realms. Yi Guchen, who had comprehended 4 types of way of the sword, naturally knew how powerful it was. Looks like I still need to increase my strength, Yi Guchen thought to himself. What he needed to do the most now was to quickly master the indestructible body of Vajra, thoroughly comprehend the hard soft sword intent, and cultivate the void sword technique. Finally, after 2 days, the elite arena defending battle also ended. Out of the last 500 people, only 150 people successfully passed the stage and entered the final round. From the tens of thousands of cultivators to only 150 people in the end, it could be seen how strict the 10 prefectures' elite assemblies examination was. However, only those heavenly prides that passed through the various stages of selection would be truly valued by the 7 major forces and be nurtured with resources. Everyone being able to pass the 3rd stage has already proved that you are all dragons and phoenixes amongst men. Even in the entire Saint Origin dynasty, your talents are also extraordinary. However, this old man can tell you that in the final stage, your lives may be in danger. Furthermore, no one will come to your rescue. The old man who presided over the competition had a rare serious expression as he spoke with a solemn tone. Hearing this, the expressions of some of the remaining 150 cultivators changed slightly. Therefore, if anyone is afraid now, you can withdraw. However, this old man will say something. In the 4th stage, the true big shots of the 7 major forces will come. The old man's words caused the eyes of some cultivators who were slightly shaken to light up. The big shots of the 7 major forces? Some of the heavenly prides looked at each other with a trace of excitement. If they could really catch the eye of the big shots of the 7 major forces, it would be equivalent to reaching the heavens in a single bound, and they would be able to obtain a lot of resources to nurture them. The old man nodded slightly when he saw that no one withdrew. He opened his mouth and said, "This 4th hurdle can be said to be the most important hurdle in the elite gathering. Those who perform outstandingly will definitely be fought over by the 7 great factions." Hearing this, the crowd was even more curious about the 4th stage's assessment. The location of the 4th stage is located in the Infinite Wasteland. What you need to do is to enter the Infinite Wasteland and search for the cave dwelling of the fallen experts. The old man's words caused an uproar. The Infinite Wasteland was the most dangerous and forbidden area in the Saint Origin dynasty. Not to mention the Qi refining realm cultivators, even the experts who had passed the life and death threshold and spiritual bridge of heaven and earth would be killed if they were to enter the forbidden area. However, the Infinite Wasteland was also one of the most famous treasure grounds. For example, the Sword King's secret realm of the North River Sword King Chu Donglu was discovered in the Infinite Wasteland. It was also the source of Yi Guchen's fall. Yi Guchen didn't expect that the final stage of the assessment would be in the Infinite Wasteland. Whether it was the Sword King's secret realm of the North River Sword King, the mysterious immemorial sword token, or even the incomplete god-slaying sword art, they all came from the Infinite Wasteland. The Infinite Wasteland is said to have thousands of cave dwellings. Although many have been discovered, there are still many left. What you need to do is to find the cave dwelling of an expert and guard it for 3 days. If no other heaven prides can snatch the cave dwelling from your hands within 3 days, it will be your achievement and will be included in your score. If you join any force in the future, the cave dwelling you find will also belong to that force. You can say that if you find the life and death threshold cave dwelling, the 7 major forces won't care about it, but it will be a great opportunity for you. If you find the spiritual bridge cave dwelling, even the 7 major forces will pay attention to you. And if you find the cave dwelling of an expert of the divine dwelling stage who has passed the spiritual bridge of heaven and earth, you will be fought over by the 7 major forces. The old man's words made the blood in the veins of some heaven prides boil. After the spiritual bridge of heaven and earth is the divine dwelling stage. It seems that the North River Sword King is an expert of the Divine Dwelling stage, Yiguchen thought. The Divine Dwelling stage was still too far away from him. But Xia Yubing had obtained the complete inheritance of a sword cultivator of the Divine Dwelling stage. If I can find a cave dwelling of a Divine Dwelling stage sword cultivator similar to the North River Sword King, will I be able to completely suppress Xia Yubing? Yiguchen suddenly thought. This thought made him even more interested in the infinite wasteland plains. The Boundless Heaven Sword art and the Shadow Kill Sword art have already reached the basic level and are not too far away from the profound level. The God-slaying sword art has been cultivated for the time being. It would be best if I could find the complete version. As for the Void Sword technique, I have the foundation of the Vacuum Sword Wave, so it should not be too slow to cultivate. Yiguchen was thinking. What he needed to do now was to cultivate the Void Sword technique, and to cultivate the Boundless Heaven Sword art and the Shadow Kill Sword art to the profound level. As for the Aurora Fast Sword, the Horizontal Lightning Sword, and the Moon Piercing Sword art, they were not very useful to him and could be abandoned. As for the Golden Snake Sword art, although it was only a Xiantian sword art, it could be used to comprehend the hard-soft sword essence, so it was still necessary. The only thing left was the Tai Chi sword art. The more Yiguchen practiced this sword art, the more mysterious it was. Zhang Sanfeng was worthy of being one of the top 10 peerless masters on par with the sword demon. I have cultivated the Tai Chi sword art to the basic level, so I can temporarily reflect 70% of the power. If I cultivate it to the profound level, I can reflect 100% of the power. Yiguchen thought. The Tai Chi sword art was a rare defensive sword art, so Yiguchen naturally had to continue to cultivate it. After sorting out, Yiguchen also began to cultivate. The Vacuum Sword Wave was a remnant of the Void Sword technique, so Yiguchen did not encounter too many obstacles when cultivating the Void Sword technique. In this way, more than 10 days passed. In the quiet garden, Yiguchen held the meteorite soft sword and swung it. The sword body hummed and trembled, as if it was resonating with the surrounding void. A ripple-like void sword wave spread out. Before Yiguchen used the Vacuum Sword Wave, at most, there were 20 to 30 layers of sword wave. But after obtaining the complete Void Sword technique, Yiguchen directly broke out 50 to 60 layers of sword wave. Boom! The terrifying vibrating power of the Void Sword ripple directly shattered a rockery not far away into powder in an instant. But it was not over yet. Again! Buzz! Buzz! The meteorite soft sword kept humming, and dozens of layers of sword wave spread out, superimposing with the previous sword wave. Void Sword technique, 100 layers of waves. Yiguchen's sword edge trembled violently, and the 100 layers of sword wave superimposed together, the power was terrible. A gust of wind blew. Around Yiguchen, the rockery, the stone, the wood, and the walls of the courtyard were all silently reduced to dust. It is indeed the complete version of the Void Sword technique. Looking at the dust floating in the sky, Yiguchen smiled slightly. The sword wave generated by the Void Sword technique could ignore most of the defense, so it was very lethal. And Yiguchen's 100 layers of waves was the minor skill of the Void Sword technique. Even Xian Ying and the others from the Limitless Sword sect would be speechless if word got out that he had cultivated a spiritual level superior sword technique to the minor completion in 10 days. Of course, this was because Yiguchen had the foundation of the Vacuum Sword Wave, Sword Demon Comprehension, and the seed of the Sword Heart. In the next half a month, Yiguchen had been cultivating the 4 spiritual level sword techniques. Finally, the 1-month time limit was up, and Yiguchen was ready to leave. After a month of recuperation, Su Jinsher's injuries were almost healed, and there was not a trace of a scar left on her delicate body. Big brother, Shui, doesn't want to stay here alone. Shui wants to go too. Just as Yiguchen and Su Jinsher were about to leave for the everlasting plains, Shui stubbornly tugged at Yiguchen's sleeve. Su Jinsher's heart was about to melt when she saw Shui's big, bright eyes. Su Jinsher also pleaded, "Just bring Shui along. When the time comes, just let her stay outside and not enter the everlasting plains." Yiguchen could only helplessly wave his hand when he couldn't withstand the two beauties' longing gazes. Just like that, Yiguchen left Tianzong City with Su Jianshi and Shui and headed for the Everlasting Plains. The Everlasting Plains was located in the northern part of the Saint Origin dynasty. It was an extremely vast wilderness. Fortunately, the old man who presided over the meeting had already decided on the location, so Yiguchen and the others went straight to the rendezvous point. Before reaching the rendezvous point, Yiguchen could already see the dense crowd in the distance. There were even more people than the crowd outside the Black Sky Mountain range. It was obvious that the last round of the 10 prefectures elite meeting had attracted a lot of attention. Yiguchen and Su Jianshi's arrival attracted a lot of attention, including Qin Baizhan and the other two worldly bridge experts. They coldly stared at Yiguchen. In addition, Xian Ying, Qin Aoshi, Xia Yubing, and the others also looked at Yiguchen. It looks like the fourth round won't be peaceful. Yiguchen sighed inwardly. Inside, there was Qin Aoshi, Xia Yubing, and the others. Outside, there was Xian Ying, Qin Baizhan, and the other two worldly bridge experts. It could be said that there was a wolf in front and a tiger behind. Yiguchen definitely wouldn't be able to escape. However, he wasn't afraid in the slightest. His expression was as calm as ever. Suddenly, several extremely powerful fluctuations swept over from the distance. Their auras were frightening. It's the big shots from the 7 major powers. Yiguchen raised his brows and glanced over. Chapter 162. In the first 3 stages of the elite meeting, there were only some elite disciples, and at most some elder-level figures. Life and death chamber experts may be the pillars of some superfamilies, but in the 7 great forces, they could only assume the position of an elder. Only heaven and earth spirit bridge experts were the true upper echelons of the 7 great forces. As for the divine dwelling stage experts, they were already the sect master and supreme elder-level existences of the 7 great forces. At the 4th stage, those who remained were the true giants among men. Moreover, it was related to the cave-dwelling ruins of the heavenly wasteland plains, so there would be real important figures coming. Yiguchen focused his gaze. Because he was a sword cultivator, he only cared about the 2 great forces. The Limitless Sword Sect and the Sword Sect Tower. The important figure of the Limitless Sword Sect was standing on a flying sword, dressed in a black and white robe. His eyes were like the sun and moon in the sky, exuding a majestic and powerful aura. It's the Hall Master of the Sun-Moon Hall of the Limitless Sword Sect, Xiantai. It's Xiantai. I heard that he has reached the pinnacle of the Heaven and Earth Spirit Bridge and is half a step into the Divine Dwelling stage. If he really succeeds, the strength of the Limitless Sword Sect will soar again. Among the 7 great forces, apart from the Limitless Sword Sect, the people of the other forces were whispering to each other. However, the person who came from the Sword Sect Tower made even more people dumbfounded. It's him. Wasn't he given to him by the sect master of the Limitless Sword Sect, Xian Wuji? Shu, keep quiet, don't talk too much. Don't you know that he is the legend of the Sword Sect Tower? Yiguchen was a little curious and cast his gaze over. The person who came from the Sword Sect Tower was a middle-aged man dressed in plain cotton clothes. He looked very handsome, and his figure was as straight as a sword. The only eye-catching thing was his eyes. Although they looked normal, there was no focus and were very empty. In addition, this person did not have the soul-stirring aura of Xiantai. He was like an ordinary handsome man. But Yiguchen's eyes flashed with surprise as he stared at the person. This person gives me the feeling of a brightly lit sword heart? No, it's not just a brightly lit sword heart. There seemed to be a connection between sword cultivators. For example, Yiguchen could sense that Su Jianshi possessed a brightly lit sword heart. When he saw this man, Yiguchen also had a vague feeling, but he was not sure. It really is him. The legend of the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest, the Lightless Sword King, Feng Manlu. I heard that he was blind since childhood, so he was called the Lightless Sword King. His talent was extraordinary, and he cultivated to the divine dwelling stage. Unfortunately, that incident happened in the end. Yi Guchen also revealed a surprised expression when he heard the discussions of some people. Despite being blind, he had managed to cultivate to the divine dwelling stage and was even a sword cultivator. Divine dwelling, feng 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 xian xian, feng xian 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 stage divine will, yi xian xian xian. Just as Yi Guchen felt a stinging pain in his eyes, Feng Manlu turned his head. So powerful! Even Yi Guchen was shocked by the scene just now. Cold sweat broke out on his back. Interesting. Feng Manlu's lips curved in a faint smile as he flew to the Sword Sect Tower's viewing platform. Elder Qing He and Chu Qingqi cupped their hands together. I didn't expect you to come to watch the competition, Feng Manlu, Xian Tai said coldly from the Limitless Sword Sect's side. I've stayed in the Sword Sect Tower for too long, so I have to come out occasionally. Feng Manlu's voice was indifferent. It's a pity that the Sword King of a generation is still stuck at the Spirit Bridge stage. It seems that you won't be able to step into the divine dwelling stage for the rest of your life. Xian Tai mocked as though he was not used to Feng Manlu's indifferent tone. Then I have to thank Shen Wuji. Feng Manlu was still not angry. Seeing that he couldn't provoke Feng Manlu's anger, Xian Tai retracted his cold gaze and said indifferently, your Sword Sect Tower won't be able to obtain a single Heaven Pride sword cultivator in this elite gathering. Whether it's Xia Yubing or Yuan Mie, you won't be able to obtain either. Is that so? Feng Manlu shook his head and smiled. He thought of the aura he had faintly sensed just now. That little guy isn't simple to be able to sense my sword heart, Feng Manlu said inwardly. With the arrival of the important figures from the 7 great forces, the atmosphere was completely ignited. All the participating Heaven Prides wanted to show off their skills in front of these important figures. Everyone, the 4th round of the elite gathering has officially begun. Every participant, please come forward to receive your jade token. The old man presiding over the competition said. Yi Guchen and Su Jianshi both received a few jade tokens, but they didn't know what they were for. Then, the old man took out a bronze mirror and infused it with his true qi. The bronze mirror suddenly rose into the air and expanded in the wind, turning into a huge mirror that was hundreds of feet in length and width. This is a mystical rune divine weapon, the 10,000-mile sky surveying mirror. It can sense the jade pendant that you are carrying. After you find a cave abode, you can crush the jade pendant. The mirror will sense it and display the scene of the cave abode you are in. Under the eyes of the 7 great forces and everyone else, as long as you can hold on for 3 days, it'll be considered a good result. Of course, it's also possible to work together, but the cave abode can only belong to one person, the old man explained. It's a mystical weapon, Yi Guchen thought to himself. Mystical weapons were of a higher level than spiritual inscription weapons. The spiritual inscriptions on mystical weapons could overlap and resonate with each other to form a formation. Its power was even stronger than spiritual inscription weapons. One could imagine how terrifying it would be if one controlled a mystical weapon and casually attacked with the power of a formation. Of course, the 10,000-mile sky survey mirror didn't have any offensive abilities. It only had the ability to manifest. After everything was arranged, Yi Guchen and the other participating Heaven Prides entered the Tianhuang Plains. Just like when they entered the Black Sky Mountain Range, the 150 prodigies entered separately. However, this time, Yi Guchen was careful. He and Su Jianshi carried a communication jade slip so that they could inform each other of their locations. Of course, since the cave abode ruins could only be occupied by one person, it wouldn't be good for Yi Guchen and Su Jianshi to travel together. It would be more efficient to search for the cave abodes separately. The Tianhuang Plains was vast and boundless. A wild and primitive aura permeated the place. It was said that there were thousands of cave abodes in the Tianhuang Plains, but no one knew why so many experts had died here. Even Yi Guchen felt that the Tianhuang Plains was extremely mysterious. The primordial sword token, God-slaying sword art remnant scroll, and so on were all discovered here. The primordial sword token is closely related to the famed primordial swords. If I can find more primordial sword tokens in the plains, I might be able to find some clues about the famed primordial swords. Yi Guchen thought to himself. The 108 famed primordial swords were all supreme weapons with vast power. They were far more powerful than spiritual inscription weapons and mystical inscription weapons. They were items that could only be found by chance. Although Yiguchin had decided to forge his own famed sword, if he had the chance to obtain a famed primordial sword, he would like to test how powerful it was. Chapter 163. But this matter seemed too far away. Yiguchin shook his head and decided not to think about it for the time being. But for some reason, as soon as Yiguchin entered the Tianhuang Plains, he vaguely felt that the flow of spirit qi between heaven and earth seemed a little strange. Vaguely, like a vortex, it converged toward the depths of the plains. But this was only a vague feeling. The Tianhuang Plains was originally mysterious and strange. Yiguchin no longer thought about it. What he needed to do now was to find the cave dwelling of an expert. Although the Tianhuang Plains was known to have thousands of cave dwellings, it was still very difficult to find a cave dwelling, especially one above the life and death threshold. Otherwise, the cave dwelling of a divine dwelling expert like the North River Sword King would not be so rare. About half a day later, Yiguchin had been flying at high speed. But the plains were incomparably vast, and it was not possible to find the cave dwelling of an expert in a short period of time. However, at this moment, Yiguchin suddenly saw several black dots in front of him, which seemed to be some people. Yiguchin quietly approached and found that it was 4 or 5 black-clothed men. These black-clothed men had a fierce look, and their cultivation was around the 8th or 9th cycle of the qi refining stage. But they were obviously not disciples of aristocratic families or sects, nor were they heaven prides participating in the competition. Are they the bandits? Yiguchin thought. There were many opportunities in the Tianhuang Plains, and there was naturally no lack of robbers. But given their cultivation of the qi refining stage, they could only operate in the periphery. Suddenly, a man who seemed to be the leader abruptly turned around and looked in Yiguchin's direction. Who is it, come out? Yiguchin raised his eyebrows slightly. These bandits were indeed people who licked blood from their blades all year round, and their perception was very sharp. Yiguchin casually walked out. Seeing that it was a youngster who came out, the bandit leader breathed a sigh of relief, and then a trace of coldness emerged on his face. Boy, we found a cave, which may be a cave dwelling of an expert. There must be many opportunities inside. Don't you want to go in and explore? The bandit leader asked. You want to use me as a scapegoat to help you find out the situation inside the cave? Yiguchin asked bluntly. The bandit smiled coldly. Brat, you are very smart. However, this is the only way. If you enter, you will have a chance to survive. If you don't, you will immediately lose your life. The bandit leader sneered. Yiguchin was wearing a black robe and was not very eye-catching. He did not emit any aura, so these bandits did not care. Yiguchin smiled and nodded slightly without saying anything. What these bandits discovered was a slanted cave entrance that led underground. It was about the height of a person, and it was pitch black inside. They couldn't see anything clearly. Yiguchin walked in front while the bandits walked behind him. Not long after, the space in front of them suddenly expanded. It was a rather large cave. In the deepest part of the cave, there was a stone platform on which sat a figure who had already passed away. There seemed to be some scattered objects around the figure. It really is a cave dwelling of an expert. The bandits were pleasantly surprised. However, Yiguchin was slightly disappointed because the corpse did not give him a strong sense of pressure. Even after death, an expert with a high cultivation level would still have a residual aura. As for the figure, the aura that was faintly emitted was equivalent to the divine soul realm. It was much stronger than Xianing, but at most, it was around the 7th transformation of the divine soul realm. There should be some treasures in there. We are rich. Just as the bandits took a few steps forward, a hair-raising hiss suddenly came from the deepest part of the cave. A 2-foot-long black iron-back centipede slithered out. The centipede's densely packed legs were like steel needles, piercing a series of holes in the ground. This is a beast puppet? Yiguchin sensed the aura of the iron-back centipede. It did not have any vitality. It was like a puppet, but this beast puppet was made of the body of a monster beast. The iron-back centipede flew directly toward Yiguchin, and the rest of the bandits retreated. Yiguchin used his wave-like subtle steps. His figure blurred instantly, like smoke or fog. The beast puppet had no intelligence, and it attacked instinctively. Seeing Yiguchin's figure blurring, the ironback centipede directly turned into a black shadow and attacked the bandits. These bandits did not have the trump cards and skills of the geniuses, and soon died tragically under the ironback centipede's sickle-like poisonous fangs. Not bad. This beast puppet alone is comparable to an expert in the divine soul realm. Yiguchin did not hesitate. He unsheathed the meteorite soft sword and directly used the void sword technique. Waves of transparent sword wave spread out. No matter how strong the ironback centipede's defense was, it could not resist the shock force. Void sword technique, 100 waves. Yiguchin's sword buzzed and vibrated. 100 layers of transparent sword wave instantly overlapped, and like a wild wolf, it rushed toward the ironback centipede. The powerful sword ripples caused the entire rock cave to tremble. The ironback centipede's body was paralyzed on the ground, and its densely packed steel needle-like legs were all shattered into fine powder. Yiguchin was very satisfied with the power of the void sword technique. After dealing with the ironback centipede, Yiguchin turned and landed beside the corpse of the expert in the divine soul realm. Because it was only in the divine soul realm, Yiguchin did not intend to crush the jade pendant. At the very least, it would be a life-and-death challenge cave abode that was worth guarding for more than 3 days. Even if this divine soul realm's cave abode was reported, it would only be laughed at by some people. Even so, Yiguchin was not without gains. There were also some things beside the corpse of the divine soul realm expert. A broken and dusty divine weapon with spiritual inscriptions was not attractive to Yiguchin. There was also a yellow-skinned gourd and a piece of jade strip. These were the things that attracted Yiguchin. When he opened the yellow-skinned gourd, the fragrance of elixirs filled the air. Yiguchin looked at it and discovered that it was a translucent elixir. There seemed to be a milky white mist flowing inside the elixir. Faintly, the elixir emitted a soul fluctuation. It's actually a spirit elixir. Yiguchin was slightly surprised. Although he did not know how to refine elixirs, he could still recognize some elixirs. The spirit elixir was an essential elixir for divine soul realm experts. This elixir had the effect of nourishing the soul. After consuming it, it could strengthen the soul force in the sea of consciousness. Although Yiguchin had yet to open his sea of consciousness, his soul force was still present. Furthermore, the spirit elixir could help a cultivator break through to the divine soul realm. This gourd of spirit elixir was not cheap. Yiguchin immediately picked up another piece of jade strip and checked its contents. After a long time, Yiguchin finally finished checking it. What was recorded in the jade slip was a secret technique called soul burning secret technique. There were many secret techniques that had different effects. For example, Yiguchin's soul-devouring secret technique could increase one's cultivation in a short period of time. It was a secret technique that could put one's life on the line. As for the soul-burning secret technique, it was a secret technique that could burn one's soul force at a critical moment. It could increase one's soul attack to the extreme. Of course, the soul-burning secret technique had a side effect. It consumed a lot of soul force and caused a lot of damage. If this secret skill of soul ignition is combined with my Eye of Azura, what kind of power will it unleash? Yiguchin thought of this. His Eye of the Azura could cause his enemies to fall into various Azura illusions for a short period of time. If he used the soul-burning secret technique, would he be able to heavily injure his enemies' souls? Chapter 164. Not only could the secret technique be used individually, but it could also be used in combination. Yiguchin had thought of this. After obtaining the spirit pill and the secret technique of soul ignition, Yiguchin left the cave abode. At first, he was doubtful about whether he could find the cave abode. Now, it seemed that there were indeed many opportunities in the infinite planes. After leaving the divine soul realm cave abode, Yiguchin continued to wander around the plains while comprehending the secret technique of soul ignition. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Yiguchin had entered the central region of the infinite planes. In these 3 days, he had encountered 3 waves of bandits and some treasure hunters wandering around the plains. On the other hand, he had not encountered any of the participating sky prides. Just as Yi Guchen was cursing in his heart, waves of true energy spread out from the horizon in the distance. They swept across the yellow sand like torrents, as if a chaotic battle had broken out. It's the participating sky prides. Yi Guchen's eyes lit up as he rushed over. At this moment, a chaotic battle between the sky prides was breaking out on the horizon. North Denge, we have already agreed that the sky prides of the Milky Way prefecture would form an alliance to search for the cave abode together. However, you betrayed us and lured the sky prides of the great desolate prefecture here. What is the meaning of this? An elegant young girl in a light green dress gritted her teeth as she glared angrily at the young man in front of her. If Yi Guchen was here, he would have recognized her. She was one of the 7 sky prides of the Milky Way prefecture, Chu Shiqing. North Deng, you are too untrustworthy. An elegant man in a black robe wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His tone was cold. He was Song Daojin. In addition, Zhou Han from the Zhou clan and Wang Cheng from the Wang clan were among them. This was an alliance of sky prides of the Milky Way prefecture led by Song Daojin. As for Xia Yubing, she was already one of the top sky prides. Naturally, it was impossible for her to form an alliance with Song Daojin. Trust? Apart from Xia Yubing, who else in the Milky Way prefecture could safely pass the 4th stage? In the past, only the geniuses from the St. Yuan prefecture and the Great Desolate prefecture were the strongest. Opposite Song Daojin and the others was a young man in embroidered clothes who had a cold smile on his face. He was the thunderclap sword Xiaobei Angelica. Beside Bei Denge stood a total of 7 or 8 men. Their auras were vigorous and heavy, and they were between the 8th and 9th refinement cycles of Qi refinement. The sky prides of the Great Desolation Mansion had been fighting against the 5 Elements brute tribe at the Great Wall of the Desolation border all year round. Therefore, they had cultivated a murderous aura, and their combat skills were incomparably powerful. Bei Denge, you've done well. I didn't expect these geniuses of the Milky Way province to be able to find a life and death cave abode. Now it's our lucky day. When we find more cave abodes in the future, we'll naturally share some with you, said a man in black with a golden battle axe on his shoulder. Thank you, big brother Shintu. Bei Dengere smiled flatteringly. The man carrying the golden battle axe was also a member of the Shintu family. Shintu Ao. Opposite him, Song Daojin's expression was a little ugly. The group of geniuses from the Milky Way province had traveled in an alliance and accidentally discovered a broken formation. There was a cave abode under the formation, and judging from its aura, it was at least at the life and death realm. While they were breaking the formation, Bei Denge took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention and left. Song Daojin and the others didn't pay much attention at first. It was only now that Bei Denge had brought a group of geniuses from the Great Desolate Prefecture here that they realized they had been betrayed by Bei Denge. The person that Song Daojin was most wary of was the genius with the golden battle axe named Shintu Ao. He was also a genius from the Shintu family. Although his strength and reputation weren't as good as Shintu Miao's, he could still easily suppress them. Not to mention that Shintu Ao had a group of geniuses from the Great Desolate Prefecture with him. If you hand over this life and death cave abode now, you can still keep your life. If you insist on not leaving, don't blame the battle axe for being merciless. Shintu Ao held the golden battle axe in his hand, and a murderous aura surged around him. An aura of blood and fire emanated from him. Obviously, the geniuses from the Great Desolate Prefecture were different from the geniuses from the aristocratic families. Impossible. Song Daojin clenched his sword tightly. Chu Shiqing and the others were also unwilling to give up the cave abode that they had painstakingly found. Since you don't want to leave, then die. Shintu Ao stomped his foot and charged towards Song Daojin and the others like a cannonball. The other geniuses from the Great Desolate Prefecture also attacked. Boom, boom, boom. Instantly, a chaotic battle broke out. The Great Desolation Mansion was superior to the Milky Way Prefecture in both numbers and strength. The chaotic battle scene was also displayed to the outside world through the 10,000-mile sky surveyor mirror. This was because Song Daojin had crushed the jade token after discovering the life and death cave abode. TSK, what a pity. The Sky River Province geniuses are really unlucky. Without Xia Yubing's help, they definitely won't be able to contend with the Great Desolate Prefecture. Yeah, in terms of the number and quality of geniuses, the St. Yuan Prefecture and the Great Desolate Prefecture obviously surpass the other prefectures. The Sky River Province actually had a traitor. It looks like they're in for it this time. The cultivators who were watching the battle and the people from the 7 major forces shook their heads slightly. This was a battle without any suspense. On the plain, the chaotic battle continued and dust filled the air. Heavenly Fire Thunderbolt. Bei Denge wielded his lightning fire swords and shot out 3 or 4 heavenly fire thunderbolts. Shameless. Chu Shiqing shouted and hurriedly took out a tortoiseshell-like defensive spiritual artifact. As the young lady of the Heavenly Forging Pavilion, Chu Shiqing naturally had many spiritual artifacts on her. Boom, boom, boom. The Heavenly Fire Thunderbolt exploded and a violent force swept out in all directions. Even with the tortoiseshell-like spiritual artifact protecting her body, Chu Shiqing was still shaken and coughed up blood. In addition, Song Daojin, Zhou Han, and the others were also affected. They retreated with pale faces. Humph, you overestimate yourself. You're just an ant trying to shake a tree. Bei Dengui sneered and the lightning fire swords shot out toward Chu Shiqing. Chu Shiqing's pretty face changed drastically. Song Daojin, who was standing to the side, immediately rushed over and raised his azure edge sword to block the lightning fire swords. You're still in the mood to save the damsel in distress? Shintu Ao sneered. His true energy erupted and the golden battle axe violently chopped down with mountain-splitting power. Domineering Axe Third Form, Mountain Splitter. As the axe chopped down, Song Daojin blocked it with his sword and spat out blood. Young Master Song. Chu Shiqing's pretty face was pale. Even Song Daojin, who was the strongest among them, could not block it. Who else could save them? Chu Shiqing's face was ashen. Shintu Ao's battle axe chopped toward Song Daojin and Chu Shiqing. At this moment, 4 or 5 powerful sword chi finger lights, like long swords splitting the air, swept over and landed on the golden battle axe. Even with Shintu Ao's strength, he was still forced to retreat. Who is it? Shintu Ao frowned and shouted coldly. Not far away, an ordinary-looking young man in a black robe rushed over. His gaze did not land on Shintu Ao but on Bei Denge. It's Dugu Bai. The Great Desolate Mansion's sky prides tensed up as though they were facing a formidable enemy. Chapter 165. The most famous prodigy in this elite gathering was none other than Su Yuxia. It was not Xia Yubing or Su Jianshi, but the Dugu Bai that Yiguchen had transformed into. Therefore, the prodigies from the Great Desolate Mansion all looked solemn when they saw Yiguchen. Of course, they had been fighting in the desolate border all year round, so they had a strong will. It was impossible for them to retreat the moment they saw Yiguchen. Dugu Bai, what's the meaning of this? Shintu Ao gripped his golden battle axe tightly with a solemn look in his eyes. The person in front of him was a prodigy who could compete with his cousin, Shintu Feng. However, Yiguchen did not seem to hear him as he glanced at Bei Deng. Bei Dongui's expression turned cold. He felt a chill run down his spine and gradually spread up his body. Why is Dugu Bai staring at me? Bei Dongui's mouth tasted bitter as his hair stood on end. He had a bad feeling about this. Is this karma? Yiguchen shook his head as he thought to himself. As Yiguchen's strength increased, Bei Denge could no longer be considered his opponent. Previously, Yiguchen had many things to do, so he did not have the time to settle the grudge between him and Bei Denge. After all, it was Bei Dongui's plot that caused Yiguchen's death, allowing the sword demon to be reborn. And now, Yiguchen had coincidentally encountered Bei Denge in the 4th stage of the elite gathering. Should this be considered Yiguchen's luck or Bei Dongui's tragedy? After all, Bei Denge would not have met Yiguchen even if he did not pass any of the first 3 stages. Perhaps this was the fate of karma. Bei Dengre would have to pay with his life. However, Yiguchen would definitely not reveal the truth now. Therefore, he only glanced at Bei Dengre coldly and said casually, "I'm just lending a helping hand when I see injustice." Shinto Ao and the other paragons of the great desolate mansion turned gloomy when they heard this. They definitely did not believe Yiguchen's nonsense, but it was obvious that Yiguchen was destined to get involved in this matter. "Dugubai, I am Shinto Ao from the Shinto family. There is no enmity between us. If you insist on interfering, I'm afraid that you will have to pay quite a hefty price." Shinto Ao's aura was faintly emitted, and the golden battle axe in his hand was suffused with a sharp golden light. "Oh, what price?" Yiguchen asked. "Kill." Hearing Yiguchen's indifferent words, Shinto Ao's face turned cold. He immediately chopped at Yiguchen with his axe. The berserk axe light carried an imposing aura that could cut through everything, drawing out an unstoppable whistling sound in the air. Yiguchen unsheathed his meteorite soft sword. The 72 weapon meridians lit up, causing the sword chi to become even sharper. At the same time, the chi-gathering spiritual runes on the meteorite soft sword were activated. Vigorous true chi gathered on the sword, causing the meteorite soft sword to be as dazzling as a star. When the sword was swung out, it was like a sword chi python streaking across the sky. The ultimate move of the golden snake swordsmanship, mysterious sword light snake. Clang. Shinto Ao's battle axe chopped down with an incomparably heavy force. However, what made Shinto Ao's face aghast was that the power contained within Yiguchen's sword edge was actually even stronger than his own. How is this possible? This was beyond Shinto Ao's expectations. Generally speaking, the physical strength of a sword cultivator would not be too strong. In addition, Shinto Ao's golden battle axe was heavy and domineering. The power of his axe was astonishing. However, he did not know that Yiguchen's perfect physical body, coupled with the strength of the dragon elephant, made his physical strength even more terrifying than a body-tempering expert who specialized in physical body cultivation. Bang! Shinto Ao was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. A single sword strike had forced Shinto Ao to retreat. Regardless of whether it was the Sky Prides from the Great Desolate Mansion or the Milky Way Prefecture, they were all stunned. They knew that Yiguchen was very strong. However, only by experiencing it with their own eyes could they understand how powerful his combat strength was. "Attack!" Shinto Ao roared, and the Sky Prides from the Great Desolate Mansion attacked. A total of 4 Sky Prides from the Great Desolate Mansion attacked Yiguchen at the same time, while the remaining Sky Prides attacked Chu Shiqing and the others. 6 Pulse Godly Sword. Yiguchen activated the golden sea of Qi in his body. Powerful golden true Qi gushed out along the veins on Yiguchen's arm like a torrent. Rays of true Qi continuously shot out. The reason why the 6 Pulse Godly Sword was known as a finger technique was not only because it was powerful, but also because it could be shot out continuously. Bang, bang, bang. In just a breath's time, dozens of rays of sword chi tore through the air and blasted towards the Sky Prides from the Great Desolate Mansion. It was like a machine gun, an all-out attack. After a series of explosions, the weaker Sky Prides from the Great Desolate Mansion spat out blood and were sent flying. The stronger ones were also sent flying. Is this the power of a true top-notch Sky Pride? He single-handedly wiped out the entire alliance of Sky Prides. Song Daojin and Chu Shiqing were stunned. They were considered giants among men, but compared to the indifferent young man in front of them, they were a far cry. The spectators were also dumbfounded. The outcome of the battle had been decided, but Yiguchen had turned it around single-handedly. Damn it. Shinto Ao's expression was extremely ugly, but he still refused to retreat. His golden battle axe swept across the sky. Tyrant Axe's third style, Sea Breaking. As the axe fell, true chi tore through the air. The powerful axe ray tore the ground below, plowing a deep gully. Yiguchen remained calm in the face of Shinto Ao's ferocious attack. The meteor-flexible sword vibrated, as though it was resonating with the void, producing a terrifying vibration force. Waves of sword waves spread out and blocked Shinto Ao's attack. Then, Void Sword Technique, 100-layered waves. The 100-layered waves of Sword Wave instantly overlapped like a pack of wolves and swept toward Shinto Ao and the other Sky Prides from the Great Desolate Mansion. The sound of spitting out blood continuously rang out. The Sky Prides with weaker cultivations were directly killed, their internal organs shattered. Even Shinto Ao spat out a mouthful of blood mixed with his shattered organs. He had been severely injured by the Void Sword Technique. The Void Sword Technique of the Limitless Sword Sect. How long has it been? You've already cultivated it to the initial stage. Shinto Ao clutched his chest in disbelief. Xian Ying and Zhao Jingting were also in disbelief. Especially Xian Ying, who knew how difficult it was to cultivate the Void Sword Technique. Therefore, when he saw Yi Guqin perform the 100-layered waves, he was also slightly shocked. At the same time, a strong sense of dread arose in his heart for Yi Guqin. The originally one-sided battle had been completely reversed because of Yi Guqin's arrival. Let's go! No matter how unwilling Shinto Ao was, he knew that he had to leave first. Looking at the retreating Shinto Ao and the others, Yi Guqin did not stop them. He already had enough enemies. If he killed this group of Sky Prides from the Great Desolate Mansion, Shinto Ao would definitely come after him. However, there was one person that Yi Guqin would not let go of. Using wave-like subtle steps, he flashed in front of Bei Dangere. Bei Dangere was very cunning. He had already retreated and dodged the 100-layered waves. Dugubai, there is no grudge between us. Why do you have to pester me? Bei Dangue's face was filled with fear. But Yi Guqin opened his mouth. However, he did not utter the last few words and only moved his lips. A wisp of extreme shock slowly appeared on North Angelica's face. You are. Chapter 166. Splat. Before Bei Dangere could finish his sentence, Yi Guqin swung his sword across the sky. The blood-red sword light directly cut Bei Dangue's throat. Bei Dangere covered his bleeding neck with both hands. The shock and fear in his eyes did not disappear for a long time. In the end, Bei Dangere fell to the ground and died with his eyes wide open. He stared at the sky with his empty and frightened eyes. Let's end this grudge, Yi Guqin said in his heart. His sword vibrated, and blood splattered everywhere. At this moment, Yi Guqin felt his soul being blessed. His body suddenly relaxed a little, and his thoughts were incomparably clear. Obviously, after ending his grudge with Bei Dangere, Yi Guqin's thoughts were clearer. Next, only Xia Yubing and Gu Xiaoyang are left, Yi Guqin said coldly in his heart. Thank you, young Master Dugu. Chu Shiqing and the others stepped forward. There was a hint of respect in their trembling voices. In their eyes, the battle was a hopeless situation. However, for Yi Guqin, it could be overturned with a flip of his hand. It's fine. Yi Guqin waved his hand slightly. Among the 7 prodigies of the Sky River Prefecture, his relationship with Chu Shiqing was the best. Hearing Yi Guqin's gentle tone, Chu Shiqing's heart warmed. This was different from his previous cold and indifferent attitude of a killing god. Although she did not know why the young man in front of her had such a change in attitude towards her, Chu Shiqing felt a little happy. Young Master Du, since you helped us defeat the prodigies of the Great Desolate Mansion, this life and death cave abode naturally belongs to you. Song Daozhen cupped his hands and said. Song Daozhen was a wise man. He naturally did not think that Yi Guqin really helped because he saw injustice on the road. After thinking about it, the life and death cave abode was probably the only thing that could make him help. Yi Guqin looked not far away. There seemed to be a formation light flashing on the ground. Obviously, there was a cave abode hidden below. However, Yi Guqin did not accept it. Instead, he shook his head slightly and said, Since you found this cave, it belongs to you. I will take my leave. Yi Guqin had taken action because he had some friendship with Chu Shiqing and Song Daozhen. Secondly, he wanted to kill Bei Dangere. Therefore, he wasn't really interested in the cave. Seeing Yi Guqin refuse, Song Daozhen and the others could only thank him repeatedly. After that, Yi Guqin left. As Chu Shiqing watched Yi Guqin leave, she could not help feeling that he was somewhat familiar. A certain person suddenly appeared in his mind, but he immediately shook his head. Although he is formidable, he has never participated in the elite gathering. Moreover, his strength should be slightly inferior to Dugubai. Chu Shiqing thought to herself. The person she was thinking of was naturally Yi Guchen. Chu Shiqing, don't you feel that he is very similar to someone? Song Daojun suddenly asked. Chu Shiqing was slightly surprised. When the two looked at each other, they saw a hint of doubt and surprise in each other's eyes. Could it be? An absurd and shocking conjecture flashed through their minds. After leaving Chu Shiqing and the others, Yi Guchen continued walking on the Tianhuang Plains. In a few days, Yi Guchen comprehended a little more of the soul ignition secret technique. In addition, Su Jianshi also sent a message. She had also completely occupied a life and death cave abode. Looks like I have to speed up, Yi Guchen thought to himself. A day later, Yi Guchen encountered a group of bandits. These bandits roamed the plains like hyenas, but they were also the most well-informed. What? Another expert's cave abode has been discovered? Yi Guchen asked the bandit. His eyes suddenly lit up. That's right, but it seems to have been occupied by a young expert. 4 or 5 bandit groups have already died in his hands. Young hero, please spare us. A bandit begged. Yi Guchen shook his head. He didn't bicker with these bandits and directly left. A young expert? Could it be a participating prodigy? Yi Guchen was curious. He directly rushed in the direction that the bandit pointed. In less than an hour, Yi Guchen arrived at a mountain valley. He sensed the deafening roar of a strange beast in the distance. Yi Guchen looked into the distance. He could see a powerful strange beast fighting with a figure shuttling through the air. That strange beast had crimson golden eyes. It looked like a qilin and was covered in fiery red scales. Its body was wrapped in pitch-black chains. Golden runes flickered on the chains. The other end of the chains extended into a hidden cave abode in the depths of the mountain valley. Clearly, this strange qilin beast had been forcefully imprisoned in the cave abode as a guardian beast. It's a 5th-rank beast, Sky Fire Golden-Eye Beast. Yi Guchen revealed a surprised expression. This Sky Fire Golden-Eye Beast was extremely powerful even among 5th-rank beasts. It was even more powerful than blood demons. Ordinary life and death chamber experts might not be able to contend against it. However, the figure fighting against the Sky Fire Golden-Eye Beast was a young man. The young man wore an elegant white robe. His hair was like a knife, his eyes were like dots of lacquer, and his face was like jade. His skin was even fairer than a woman's. It seemed to contain a divine light. He was a handsome man who was as handsome as an immortal. Yi Guchen's original appearance was already considered to be extraordinarily handsome with straight eyebrows and bright eyes. However, this young man was even more handsome than Yi Guchen. However, what caught Yi Guchen's attention was not the young man's appearance, but his strength. Life and death chamber? How is this possible? Such a young life and death chamber expert? Even Yi Guchen was surprised after sensing the young man's aura. Such a young life and death chamber expert. He was certain that he was not a participating Heaven's Pride. Otherwise, the 7 major forces would have fought over him. Boom! The Sky Fire Golden-Eye Beast was indeed a powerful 5th-rank beast. It spat out a mouthful of golden flame, which forced the handsome young man to retreat. Hey, this beast is so hard to deal with. The young man's voice was also very pleasant. His body retreated like a white crane. The Sky Fire Golden-Eye Beast wanted to chase after him, but the chains on its body were already taut, making it difficult for it to move forward. Helpless, the Sky Fire Golden-Eye Beast could only roar at the handsome young man. These two, whether it's the Sky Fire Golden-Eye Beast or the mysterious young man, they are not people I can provoke. It's not worth it for a cave abode. Yi Guchen made up his mind and prepared to retreat. Brother, please wait for a moment. Yi Guchen stopped in his tracks because he felt that the young man's aura had locked onto him. I have no intention of offending you. I'm just passing by, so I won't disturb you. Yi Guchen cupped his hands and said, Don't you have any thoughts about this cave abode? The handsome young man squinted his eyes and said, Since you found it first, I naturally have no intention of fighting for it. Although the young man's aura was strong, Iguchin did not back down and looked at him calmly. "Tsk, since when did Saint Origin Dynasty have such an extraordinary person like you?" Looking at Iguchin's calm and steady aura, the handsome young man smiled and said, "He really isn't from Saint Origin Dynasty." Iguchin's heart trembled slightly. "Oh, right, I forgot to introduce myself. In Saint Origin Dynasty, many people are used to calling me young Master Xiaoyao. You can call me by my name, Jun Xiaoyao." Chapter 167. Jun Xiaoyao? The Jun Xiaoyao who ranked first on the Xing Yuan genius list? Yi Guchen was also stunned for a moment before he came to his senses. The extraordinarily handsome man in front of him turned out to be young Master Xiaoyao, whose identity, origin, and background were all very mysterious. It was rumored that not many people had actually seen young Master Xiaoyao, but his strength was unquestionable. No Heaven's Pride dared to challenge his position, and no one dared to challenge his position as the first on the Xing Yuan genius list. Yi Guchen only understood after seeing him in person. What did it mean to be untouchable? It meant that they were not qualified to challenge him at all. Not to mention Qi refining stage geniuses like Yi Guchen, Xia Yubing, and Yuan Mie. Even Xian Hao and Yen Wushuang, who were at the level of Qi refining stage, were at most in the divine soul stage. Jun Xiaoyao, on the other hand, was already an expert at the life and death challenge level. There was no comparison at all. Moreover, he was also a Heaven's Pride who had left his name on the sword-seeking steel, overshadowing the names of Xian Hao, Yuan Mie, and Yen Wushuang. He was like a blazing sun, alone in the sky. "May I know your name, brother?" Jun Xiaoyao asked with a smile. "Dugu Wubai." Yi Guchen calmed down. While Jun Xiaoyao's powers were beyond his expectations, Yi Guchen's temperament meant that he would not be too fearful. It was obvious that Jun Xiaoyao had a powerful background. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to cultivate to the life and death challenge level at such a young age. "Brother Dugu, are you a Heaven's Pride who came to participate in the elite gathering? I've never heard of your name before." Jun Xiaoyao raised his eyebrows slightly. "I'm just a nobody." Yi Guchen waved his hand and continued, "Brother Jun, why do you want me to stay here? This cave should be a heaven and earth spirit bridge level cave. There's something I need inside, but I can't get it because of this demonic beast." Jun Xiaoyao's tone was calm but sincere. However, Yi Guchen would never be so gullible. "Then those bandits from before should be able to enter and help you retrieve the items, right?" Yi Guchen probed. Jun Xiaoyao didn't mind at all. He shook his head and said, "There should be formations hidden in the cave. Those bandits won't be able to get in." "Then how does Brother Jun know that I can enter?" Yi Guchen asked. "Intuition. The intuition of a swordsman." Jun Xiaoyao took a long look at Yi Guchen. The fact that he was able to leave his name on the sword quest tablet meant that he was a swordsman as well. Yi Guchen had also sensed that Jun Xiaoyao possessed the heart of the enlightened sword. Like Su Jianshi, his comprehension of the sword Dao had reached the enlightened sword heart realm. Yi Guchen smiled faintly. He did not see any deceit or conspiracy in Jun Xiaoyao's eyes. Furthermore, with Jun Xiaoyao's cultivation at the life and death realm, there was no need for him to go through so much trouble if he wanted to scheme against Yi Guchen. "Then I'll go check it out," Yi Guchen said. "I sensed the superior 9-colored epiphyllum in the cave. I only want that. I'll keep the heavenly fire golden-eyed beast busy. Anything else, including the entire cave, will be yours." Jun Xiaoyao waved his sleeves casually, as if he didn't care at all. Yi Guchen also thought about it. Jun Xiaoyao's background was mysterious and powerful. Perhaps the cave of the spirit bridge of heaven and earth was nothing to him. After making the decision, Jun Xiaoyao and Yi Guchen were ready to make their move. Heavenly mandate, unsheathe. Jun Xiaoyao carried a sword pouch on his back. As he spoke, the pouch opened, and a long sword shot out like a dragon roaring in the sky. It was an extremely gorgeous long sword. It looked like it was carved out of light blue crystal, and it exuded a bone-piercing sharpness. Yi Guchen was also surprised when he sensed the power of the heavenly mandate sword. It was definitely not a divine weapon with spiritual inscriptions. It could only be a divine weapon with mystical inscriptions, and a top-notch one at that. Faceless Lord Swordsmanship. Jun Xiaoyao took to the air with his sword. The shadow of the Lord of Heaven seemed to have appeared behind him. The sword aura of the heavenly mandate sword crisscrossed and clashed with the heavenly fire golden-eyed beast. Its power shook the surroundings. This. Yi Guchen was stunned for a moment. It was a royal-level swordsmanship. The power of the swordsmanship made Yi Guchen feel slightly shocked. It had definitely surpassed spirit-level swordsmanship and was a true royal-level swordsmanship. Life and Death Challenge, a top-notch divine weapon with mystical inscriptions, and a royal-level swordsmanship. Just where did this Jun Xiaoyao come from? Yi Guchen thought to himself. This was a true dragon among men, the king of geniuses. However, Yi Guchen didn't just stand there. He buried these questions in his heart for the time being. While Jun Xiaoyao was dealing with the heavenly fire golden-eyed beast, Yi Guchen flashed and entered the hidden cave in the valley. As soon as he entered the cave, Yi Guchen felt a faint fluctuation of spiritual qi. It was obviously the fluctuation of a formation. Yi Guchen had once been trapped in the sword formation of the 6th Daos Ashura, so he had some sense of common formations. In front of him, the irregular cave suddenly turned into a square tunnel. Yi Guchen was very careful. As soon as he stepped in, the stone floor on the ground buzzed and lines of formation lit up. I've triggered the formation. Yi Guchen was on high alert. At that moment, some of the stone floor on the ground suddenly collapsed, and iron puppets emerged one after another. These puppets were fixed in place and moved by the formation. Each of the puppets held a sharp weapon. Coupled with the immense strength of the puppets, they were strong enough to stab holes in a person's body. Yi Guchen held the fallen star soft sword in his hand and flashed, rushing down first. Because it wasn't a sword formation, Yi Guchen had to slowly test it out. However, in the end, Yi Guchen was sent flying by the puppet's mechanisms, and the blood in his chest was boiling. Crack, crack. These puppets seemed to be operating according to a specific pattern of the formation, but it was difficult for ordinary people to see through it. This looks a bit like the Shaolin Temple's labyrinth of wooden dummies. After observing for a while, Yi Guchen immediately figured it out. With a direction in mind, Yi Guchen rushed into the formation again, using wave-like subtle steps, and his body flashed. When he was the sword demon, he had broken through the labyrinth of wooden dummies. So, after he found the pattern, he was able to break through the formation with ease. After breaking through, Yi Guchen adjusted his breath and entered. After pushing open the door of a stone room, Yi Guchen suddenly felt rich spiritual qi rushing at him. A beautiful flower shimmering with a strange 9-colored light was rooted in a piece of crystal jade that was about the size of a palm. Within the soft jade, there seemed to be a liquid that resembled fine wine and jade marrow. This should be the 9-colored superior epiphyllum that Jun Xiaoyao wanted. This piece of jade is... Yi Guchen looked at it, and a look of joy appeared in his eyes. It's the millennial jade essence. The millennial jade essence was rumored to only exist in the finest crystal jades. The millennial jade essence was rich and vigorous in spiritual qi. It was said that a drop of the millennial jade essence was worth hundreds of thousands of crystal jades. The palm-wide crystal jade in front of him contained enough 1,000-year-old jade spirit marrow to fill a jade bottle. What kind of pure and vigorous spiritual energy was that? To get through the second minor tribulation of the sea of spiritual qi, I need something with a lot of spiritual qi, and this is it. After that, as long as I can find the heavenly thunder, I will be able to get through the second minor tribulation and have a sea of spiritual qi of 1,000 feet. By then, my chances of winning against Xia Yubing will be much higher. Yi Guchen had a clear idea. He took out a jade bottle right away, cut a slit in the crystal jade, and poured the millennial jade essence into the bottle, saving it for his future sea of spiritual qi. Chapter 168. Yi Guchen left the stone room after collecting the millennial chalcedony and the 9-colored superior epiphyllum. This was not the only stone room in the entire heaven and earth spirit bridge cave dwelling. Just as Yi Guchen was about to explore the other tunnels, A faint sense of crisis suddenly surged in his heart. Is it an even more powerful formation? Yi Guchen frowned. After all, the cavern was left behind by a cultivator of the spiritual bridge of heaven and earth. It was a coincidence that he was able to break through the previous formation. It was similar to the one the sword demon used to break through in the labyrinth of wooden dummies. However, Yi Guchen didn't think he would be so lucky to break through the other formations. No wonder the seven forces weren't worried that we geniuses would covet the treasures inside after we found the cavern. It turns out that we're only in the Qi refinement realm, and we don't have the ability to take all the treasures inside. Yi Guchen finally understood. He didn't have the ability to take all the treasures in a powerful cultivator's cavern, but he could take it for himself. Whichever force he joined in the future would take over the cavern. With the resources of the seven forces, it wasn't difficult to break through a cavern of the spiritual bridge of heaven and earth. As for the geniuses who found the cavern, while they wouldn't be able to take all the treasures inside, they would still be compensated. The reason Xia Yubing was able to get all the inheritance of the Sword King of the North River was because a large group of geniuses entered the cavern together. They pushed their way through, using numbers to grind out all the obstacles in the cavern. However, Yi Guchen was alone, and it was obviously impossible for him to do such a thing. It seems that if I find some more caverns in the future, I'll have to try my best to take some of the treasures. Otherwise, it would be a waste. Yi Guchen felt that it was a pity and shook his head slightly. However, being able to get the millennial chalcedony was already a good reward. After thinking for a while, Yi Guchen gave up on exploring and rushed out of the cavern. The valley outside the cavern was a mess at the moment. The shockwaves from the battle between the heavenly fire golden-eyed beast and Jun Xiaoyao were extremely powerful. Countless black cracks spread across the ground, and the surrounding environment was scorched black as if it was on fire. Boom! Jun Xiaoyao held the heavenly mandate sword and clashed with the heavenly fire golden-eyed beast again. Waves of powerful sword aura spread all over the place. If my cultivation was higher, I would be able to tame you and make you into a nice mount, Jun Xiaoyao said with a tinge of regret. Although he was fighting against such a powerful demonic beast, he still had a carefree and relaxed expression on his face. Jun Xiaoyao smirked when he saw Yi Guchen dashing out and retreating as well. The heavenly fire golden-eyed beast let out a roar that shook the heavens. Gold-melting divine fire burst all over its body, yet it was unable to attack Jun Xiaoyao and Yi Guchen. I wonder if Brother Dugu has succeeded in obtaining the treasure? Jun Xiaoyao asked. Yi Guchen flipped his hand and took out the superior 9-colored epiphyllum. The superior 9-colored epiphyllum was beautiful and dazzling, swaying with the wind, scattering bits of light. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes lit up as he took the superior 9-colored epiphyllum and smiled faintly. Qing'er will definitely like such a rare flower. Jun Xiaoyao stared at the flower, and a touch of gentleness appeared in his eyes that were as dark as the night sky. Spending so much effort to find the cave, fighting a 5th-rank demonic beast, and obtaining the superior 9-colored epiphyllum, all for a girl? Yi Guchen was a little speechless. He was not close to relationships and had always been a loner. Naturally, he did not understand why Jun Xiaoyao went through so much trouble. All right, Brother Dugu, thank you for your help this time. Jun Xiaoyao was in a good mood after obtaining the superior 9-colored epiphyllum. He smiled and said, "We both took what we needed." Yi Guchen nodded slightly. After that, Jun Xiaoyao waved his sleeve and left right away. Looking at Jun Xiaoyao's back as he left, Yi Guchen's eyes were deep in thought. His vision was still too narrow after all. There will always be someone better than you. But this is good. It's more interesting to reach the peak. Yi Guchen was not discouraged. Instead, his fighting spirit was raised again. He believed that he would reach the peak of swordsmanship step by step. In the future, he would not be weaker than Jun Xiaoyao. He might even be stronger. After calming himself down, Yi Guchen crushed the jade pendant in his hand. This heaven and earth spirit bridge cave was worth him guarding for 3 days. Moreover, it had been so long. If Yi Guchen still could not get a cave, it would be a little unreasonable. As for the heavenly fire golden eyes beast, he did not have the ability to kill it. However, the assembly did not stipulate that he had to kill the guardian demonic beasts. Therefore, Yiguchen could guard outside the heavenly fire golden eyes beast's attack range. As Yiguchen crushed the jade tablet, the image of Yiguchen appeared on the 10,000-mile sky survey mirror outside the Tianhuang Plains. That's a 5th-rank demonic beast, the heavenly fire golden eyes beast. A cave guarded by a 5th-rank demonic beast is at least a life and death entrance. It might even be a heaven and earth spirit bridge cave. This Duguobai is really lucky. He actually found a cave of this level. When Yiguchen's image appeared, it caused a lot of discussion. In particular, the eyes of some people from the 7 major forces lit up. If it was really a heaven and earth spirit bridge cave, it would be very valuable. After all, a divine dwelling cave was something that could only be found by chance. Well, this kid is not bad. He has extraordinary talent and found such a cave. Let him join the Wuji Sword Sect, Xian Tai of the Wuji Sword Sect said. Such words made it seem as if Yiguchen joining the Wuji Sword Sect was a great opportunity. On the other side, although Feng Manlu of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest couldn't see it, he had heard Elder Qin he mention it. It seems that the one who resonated with my sword heart is Duguobai. Interesting. It's a pity that Yiguchen, who is rumored to have obtained the title of Sword Master, hasn't appeared. Otherwise, the Sword Sect Pagoda. Feng Manlu muttered in his heart and shook his head with a sigh. In the Tianhuang Plains, Yiguchen was guarding outside the cave. Yiguchen was lucky. In these 3 days, except for some bandits and warriors in the Qi refining realm who came to try their luck, he didn't meet anyone else. It seems that I'm lucky. With this cave, it shouldn't be a problem to join the 7 major forces. After 3 days, Yiguchen was ready to leave. However, at this moment, his communication jade slip lit up. Silly boy, come over quickly. I found a heaven and earth spirit bridge cave, but Prince Yuani and Qin Aoshi found it. Su Jianshir's message was suddenly interrupted before she could finish. It was clearly an emergency message in the middle of a battle. Yiguchen's brows knitted together after hearing the message. Prince Yuani aside, Qin Aoshi had a death grudge with him and Su Jianshir. Let's go. Without the slightest hesitation, Yiguchen took a step forward. Qi erupted from his feet like a thunderclap. His figure turned into a rainbow as he dashed in the direction of the communication jade tablet. Qin Aoshi, Prince Yun, if you do anything to Su Jianshir, Yiguchen will kill you. Extremely strong killing intent flashed in Yiguchen's eyes. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.